Oh, it's still logged in. That's still logged in from yesterday.
I saw Mayor Pro Tem.
No, but the screen was off, so you couldn't get in. But that stayed logged in.
We can hear you, Mayor.
Are we ready, Ms. Pine?
We need one more person to join the dais.
Oh,
Either Mayor Pro Tem Schwartzmeyer or Representative Lizarraga. Good morning. This is a meeting of the El Paso City Council for Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. Present and presiding is Mayor Leeser. Also present in council chambers is Mayor Pro Tem Schwartzmeyer, Representative Anello, Representative Molinar, Representative Salcido, Representative Lizarraga. Representative Rivera will be in later this morning. Representative Hernandez is joining us virtually, and Representative Rodriguez has requested to be excused today. It is now 9:05 a.m. Will everyone please silence their electronic devices so as not to disturb the meeting, and rise for the invocation delivered by Police Chaplain David Mayfield.
Let us pray. Dear, wise, and loving Father, first, let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for your many abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health we need to fulfill our callings, for sustenance, and for friendship. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Thanks as well for the freedom to embrace you or the freedom to reject you. Thank you for loving us from your boundless and gracious nature. I pray this morning for our mayor, for the various levels of city officials, and in particular for this assembled council. I am asking that you would grant them wisdom to govern amid the conflicting interests and issues of our times, a sense of the welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, the ability to work together in harmony even when there is honest disagreement, personal peace in their lives, and joy in their task. I pray for the agenda set before them today. Please give them an assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved city. It is in your most blessed name I pray. Amen.
Thank you. Mayor, we now go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, sir?
okay. Ready, Representative Molinar?
I pledge allegiance
To the flag.
to the United States of America.
That brings us to the mayor's proclamations.
Before we start, I just, again, yesterday we kind of talked about so many things that have happened in our country, and so many people that really sacrificed their life to make the United States and El Paso a better place and a safe place to live. And a lot of the people that have lost their lives due to COVID-19 and the efforts of the city, the county, and all the healthcare providers to make sure that our community continues to be safe. And we keep them in our thoughts and in our prayers, and I'd like to have a moment of silence for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. The first proclamation is October month.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, sir. Proclamation from the City of El Paso, Texas. Whereas the American Institute of Architects El Paso chapter adds value to the city, county, and surrounding areas by creating places that enhance the quality of life through the built environment for all residents of El Paso. And whereas the local AIA chapter is responsible for the design of many iconic buildings in El Paso, safeguards the culture of the region through historic preservation, and aids in the review of local codes and ordinances in order to maintain the health, safety, and welfare of citizens and structures. And whereas the local AIA chapter is one of the leading organizations in our community focusing on energy efficiency, sustainable design, urban planning, and the importance of building technology merged with design innovations helping to improve our city. And whereas the local AIA chapter encourages citizen architects to take pride in and learn about the built environment, how it shapes our city's progress, the ability to strengthen our regional cultural identity and quality of life through buildings, historic structures, and neighborhoods. And now therefore be proclaimed by the Mayor and City Council of the City of El Paso that the month of October shall be known as Arctober, signed by the Mayor, Honorable Mayor Oscar Leeser.
Thank you.
What?
Would somebody like to say brief words? 3 words or less. Go ahead, please.
Well, thank you, Mayor, Honorable Mayor, and council members. On behalf of our board and the entire membership of the El Paso chapter of American Institute of Architects, we want to thank you for this proclamation and furthermore for your partnership in making our city a better place and a more beautiful place through great design. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, go ahead. Next proclamation.
The next proclamation is Paint the Town Red Week.
Wait, don't leave. We're going to take a photo with you all after this proclamation. Sorry.
Yeah, we'll take a photo afterwards, but that way we only go down once. So if you don't mind waiting for a moment, please, we appreciate that.
Thank you. Proclamation of the City of El Paso, Texas. Whereas the impact of domestic violence is wide-ranging, directly affecting individuals and society as a whole, here in this community, throughout the United States and the world. And whereas women and children are exposed to domestic violence every year, causing long-term damaging effects on the victim and also leaving a mark on their family, friends, and the community at large. And whereas violence against women and children is a preventable social ill due to historical imbalance of power in gender and age, and sexual and domestic violence are widespread and devastating to society, not being confined to any group or groups of people, but crosses all economic, racial, gender, educational, religious, and societal barriers, and are sustained by societal indifference. Whereas it is important to recognize the compassion and dedication of the individuals who provide support services to victims of domestic and sexual violence and their work to increase public awareness and understanding of this significant problem. Local programs, state coalitions, national organizations, and other agencies nationwide are committed to increase public awareness to eliminate abuse through prevention and education. And whereas we encourage domestic and sexual violence victims and their families to seek assistance from appropriate victim services organizations, such as the YWCA El Paso del Norte Region Sarah McKnight Transitional Living Center, and ask all citizens to take part in the activities hosted by the YWCA and their partner organizations working toward the elimination of domestic violence and sexual assault. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Mayor and City Council of the City of El Paso that the week of October 18th through October 22nd, 2021 shall be known as Paint the Town Red Week. Thank you.
Okay, you get 4 less. We're going to give you a little extra.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank
And
you.
thank you, Mayor and Council. District 2 Representative Anello, thank you so much for championing this. My name is Elizabeth O'Hara. I am the chairwoman for this year's Walk-a-Mile, and we hope to see you all, particularly our male council members, represented at Walk-a-Mile on October 22nd. Thank you all very much for this proclamation.
Thank you, and thank you for what you all do. And I know that I've been a sponsor for many years, and we'll be sponsoring again. I am sponsoring again this year.
Yes, you are, and we appreciate that.
I even have my own red shoes, by the way.
Thank you so much, City Council, for everything you do for our community and for all of your support for the YWCA. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Doctor. And with that, we'll take a picture. We're ready?
Yes,
Thank you.
sir. Council, per the rules of order, you may not use any electronic devices other than the desktop computer, and once you obtain the floor from the presiding chair, you will have up to 10 minutes for debate. For those joining us virtually, please mute your microphones to reduce any background noise. That brings us to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda will be considered by City Council to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless separate discussion is requested by council members. Prior to the vote, Members of the audience may ask questions regarding items on the consent agenda when the vote has been taken. If an item has not been called out for separate discussion, the item has been approved. Council may, however, reconsider any item at any time during the meeting. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes. Don't know if I have it. Oh, here it is. Proposed revisions for the October 12th City Council meeting. Page 3, Item 2, request to excuse absent council members. Page 11, Item 32, delete per planning and inspections. Page 12, Item 33, delete per planning and inspections. Page 13, Item 37, delete per planning and inspections.
On item 37 is revised per planning and inspections, and the
Oh,
revision
sorry.
is to the chapter. It should read 21.5, and the section should read 21.50.060.
Okay. Page 14, Item 40, postpone 2 weeks per streets and maintenance. And also, I would like to add, I would like to take an item off the consent agenda, and that's item 10. If we could have that in the regular agenda as well.
Which item's that?
It's item 10.
20?
10.
10, okay, thank you.
10, yes, sir. 10.
You talk like you have your mouth covered or something, I don't know.
I always was told I mumbled as a kid, so that's item 10.
Yes, sir.
Second?
Council, on item number 2, it's to request Representative Rodriguez from today, and also we may want to add Representative Rivera in the event he's unable to make today's meeting, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
So we'd
you.
also like to, I guess, to amend that to have Representative Rivera as well excused.
Thank you. There is a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda as revised. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. In the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. Mayor, may we take that item that was moved to the regular agenda from the
Please.
consent?
Yes, ma'am.
That is item number 10, and this is that the City Council approves a change order in the amount of $264,139.21 to JAR Concrete for the increase in landscaping, irrigation, and other elements to the project under contract 2019-452 Paso del Norte Port of Entry roundabout improvements.
Is there a presentation from staff on this item?
Yes, I have this is Margaret Schroeder, and yes, I have the agenda, or the PowerPoint presentation.
Who requested the item moved?
Mayor Pro Tem Schwartzwein?
You did? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Margaret, can you share your screen, or IT, if you can pull the presentation, and if you can give that presentation, Margaret, please?
Yes, I'll share my screen. One moment, sorry for the delay here.
IT has it up. Margaret, you could just give it, please.
Great, thank you. Okay. So this is a change order to add enhanced landscaping to the Paso del Norte roundabout at the intersection of El Paso and 6th at the Paso del Norte Port of Entry. So the scope of work includes adding additional plant material, planters, landscape rock, irrigation system, and traffic control. And in addition to that, the art piece will be elevated by 1 foot. Next slide, please. This shows the original design that included landscaping, but not at a fairly basic level. So you can see that there is landscaping near the exit to the port of entry, not in the central roundabout area, and then on one of the medians. The enhanced design includes landscaping at the corners here and within the roundabout area, and there's additional plant material and planters in the area leaving the port of entry. Next slide, please. These are some renderings of the planters that will be included in the enhanced landscaping, and you can see the layout of the additional landscaping to be included, as well as a rendering of the art piece. Next slide, please. And the recommendation is to approve this change order for $264,139.21 for the increase in the landscaping, irrigation, and other elements to the project under contract number 2019-452 Paso del Norte Port of Entry roundabout improvements. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you for this. A couple questions relating to this. What was the public art component that was there? What was the process for its selection?
So
I can answer this question, Mayor Pro Tem. Sam Rodriguez, City Engineer. The art piece. It was part of the landscape architect design that was included in there. It was designed in context because we did not want to block the archway to Paso Las Luces. It was in essence developed by the landscape architect for the project.
So this did not go through the Public Art Committee?
It did not, and it's not funded through the public art funds. It was part of the landscape design by the landscape architect for the project.
So it's not really public art. We're calling it public art, but it didn't go through the process. It hasn't been vetted as public art. It's decorative more than anything else. Would that be?
That's correct, Pro Tem. That's correct.
Yeah, I have a problem with that just because we have so many other examples of successful public art, especially as it relates towards the terminus of El Paso Street with the giant yellow door, or the welcoming into the Paso of the North, in addition to the other award-winning pieces that we have throughout our community of our public art campaign. I'm not sure why we really cut corners on this and had a landscape architect design a decorative element and not an actual significant public art piece, literally feet away from our port of entry that thousands of Juarensians and El Pasoans cross every single day. And the fact that there was no process for this public art campaign is problematic. The other question that I have is, where are the bike racks located within this redesign? Just for the record, my concern is that you have a number of bike racks that are well utilized in the best example of multimodal transportation we have, where people go and put their bikes up when they're crossing back and forth, and you can see them situated there along the port of entry. So I'm curious if you can point out where the bike racks are as well.
Yeah, I don't think we have that location, Mayor Pro Tem. We have to go back and look at the design and see where it would make sense to locate those. I know that they have them throughout South El Paso at multiple locations, at benches and whatnot, but it's good feedback. We'll take a look at that and see where it makes sense to locate them.
And then this enhanced irrigation or enhanced landscaping, this is in planters or this is potted? This is in potted planters or this is in the ground?
The pots, it's both. It's potted and in the ground, but the pots are bottomless because they'll have irrigation that'll tie into them through underground as well, Mayor Pro Tem.
Is there a reason why we're choosing to to use planters as opposed to burying, having it all planted? Is that another landscape architect choice?
Yeah, this was done in conjunction with our city staff and our city architect, that we looked at the urban context of the design, and trying to create that some of the additional elements, or tie in some of the additional elements that we have throughout downtown with potted plants in our downtown area.
I have a lot of concerns about making this project any more complicated than it already is. The biddee or the awardee of this contract are the same contractors that are still completing the Mesa Street reconstruction project that this community has had to live with for the last year and a half. I have a lot of concerns about making this. I also don't really understand why we're doing this added, enhanced landscaping, and the most important thing is looking out for the pedestrians. And the pedestrians and folks that are crossing here are not so concerned about, a planter. They're probably more concerned about where the bike racks that we're removing are going to be located close to the port of entry as well. So I just have a lot of questions about this change order at this point, especially given the track record for this contractor.
Mayor Pro Tem, if you like an individual briefing, we can postpone this action item for 2 weeks, and we can sit down with you and give you more information on it, if you like.
I think postponing would be an appropriate action at this time.
Yeah, go ahead. Before we do that, we have Representative Anello. Sorry.
Thank you, Representative Schwartzbein, for pulling this item. I don't know if I missed this in the presentation. I know that there was just a conversation about how the art piece was designed by the contractor, but can you tell me how it's being funded, the actual sculpture, not the entire project?
Representative Anello, the design was part of the landscape architect, was not by the contractor. It was the landscape architect of record that designed the element, and is part of our entryway signage in line with that program, as this is one of the main entry points to the city. The project gets funded through federal dollars and local match dollars.
So I guess my question is, does this project qualify for the 3% art fund? Is there a 3% contingent art fund on this project?
But if you're talking about a 2% art
2%,
program, this site is a potential site for that funding. The project was funded with federal and local dollars, and it was not funded through public art funds.
But it does have the 2% art fund attached to it.
Not this project specifically, okay. Representative. The 2% for the local match dollars got rolled into the public art program, to which that master plan or that master public art program is brought to council for specific projects throughout the community. But this project specifically in this site did not include any of those 2% match dollars.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. But I agree with Representative Schwartzbein. Hold on, I agree with Representative Schwartzbein. I think that I've always kind of had an issue with this project. I think that making sure that we're building something that really does benefit the people that are going into Juarez and walking across is really the most important thing, and making sure that this roundabout with this landscaping is doing so. I think he's right. I think that bike racks are very important here. I mean, I would say that a large amount of the people crossing over on this bridge are either foot or bike traffic. And so I've had an issue with the roundabout. I mean, I'm disappointed to see that the crosswalk is part of the amended design. We had a very specific conversation about making sure that these roundabouts were walkable and accessible to people, and the fact that we're now amending that into the design, I'm glad it's there, but it's disappointing it wasn't there in the beginning. So I think I do support the idea of postponing this, but I think that all of council needs to be briefed on it.
Members of council, based on the concerns that are being raised, and I know Sam had also talked about recommending that we postpone it. I agree. I think we should have these discussions with you further regarding the art and the bike rack. So staff would make the recommendation now to postpone.
We still have Representative Hernandez that would like to speak prior to the postponement. Representative Hernandez?
Hi, yeah, good morning. I'm hearing the concern about the design, and it's not necessarily the contractor. I do want for this body to refrain from talking about contractors' work, because the same contractor has done a tremendous amount of work in my district, all very satisfactory. So the concern most of the time is the design. So are we today, the action today, are we talking about the design, or are we talking about funding landscape and irrigation?
This item, Representative Hernandez, is to fund the change in the contract for the enhanced landscaping and additional traffic control for the project. So that's what this action is proposed today.
Okay, so the design work is already completed, or how does council have an opportunity to go back and talk about design work?
So the original design was completed, and that's what was bid out and awarded to the original contract. The revised design has already been completed as well, and that's what's the basis for the change in the construction contract that you are considering today. So both designs, the original design and the revised design, are already completed, Representative Hernandez.
Okay, so if we postpone this item, are we delaying the project? So is there really an opportunity to go back and look at the design work if it's already been completed by a different designer?
Yes, Representative, there is an opportunity still to look at the design. The project is still under construction. The landscape elements are the last things to go in.
Okay, and then will the contract amount potentially change if we change the design work?
The change order amount may change, Representative, based on whatever the final design is going to be.
Okay, all right. I'll support the postponement under the understanding that what's being disputed here is the design work. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, before I make a motion to postpone, I just want to clarify that to Representative Hernandez's concerns, that the overarching concern that I have is with the design work, with the user interface of this, and the reality of how this port of entry functions for multimodal transportation for pedestrians, and making sure that is followed through, as well as some lingering questions relating towards the public art component of this. I can't think of a more important and historic entrance, truly a gateway into our community and a gateway into Mexico and the Americas, than this port of entry. And the public art that we have here should not be merely decorative. It should be something thought out and considered, enriching, and something that really excites this community on both sides of the border. So with that, I would like to make a motion to postpone.
Second.
Mayor Pro Tem, is that for 2 weeks?
Maybe we can do a month, so if there's any lingering questions, we can figure it out.
So 4 weeks?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's based upon Representative Anello's suggestion right now.
Mayor Pro Tem, can I suggest 2 weeks? And if we're not through with all the briefings and addressing the issues, we can postpone an additional 2 weeks if you don't, if you're okay with it.
I will defer to my colleague, Representative Anello.
Yeah, I didn't make the motion. 2 weeks is fine with me.
Oh,
Representatives,
2 weeks is fine. Thank you.
Representatives, if I may, if you make a determination that you would like to have this added to the public art plan, this particular site, although it's not on the program right now, it is something that we can talk to you about, making an addition and seeing if we're going to move that into the public art program. So we will make sure that staff is in touch with you to discuss that option as well.
I mean, I guess the larger question is, why would this not be included in the public art plan to begin with?
Well, it's not in this year's program that has been approved, but we can always make amendments, and we'll make sure that staff is in touch with you. We're already in October, so we'll be looking at the new plan coming to you for 2022. So we're at a really good time right now to have discussions with you about making amendments to the current program that's on the books. So we'll make sure that the public art team is in touch with you to discuss what those options look like.
And Mayor Pro Tem, part of this roundabout star is part of the entryway signage program that was presented to council. So it's in line with that particular program. We're looking at city entry points throughout the community. This was one of the major ones, as you stated. we presented to you all additional ones coming in from the west and east to the city, and we'll be happy to share that with you when we bring this item back, just to share you the concepts and where the red star comes from as part of the entryway to the city.
Yeah, I mean,
Council, there is a motion to postpone on the floor. If you'd like to continue discussion, we need to withdraw the motion to postpone.
No, call the question.
yeah, I would just say hopefully we can get briefed about the public, well, it's signage. I don't know what we're calling this thing at this point, but that would be a good thing to get briefed on as well.
There is a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Schwarzwein, seconded by Representative Anello, to postpone the item for 2 weeks. On that motion, call for the vote.
Thank you.
Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. In the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. We now go to page number 6, to item number 21, and this is discussion and action on the renewable generation study completed by El Paso Electric Company as required by Ordinance number 019022, and a review of its mandated deliverables, included but not limited to possible costs related to the integration of utility-scale renewable generation in the utility company's Texas service territory, the legislative or regulatory changes that may be necessary to increase utility-scale renewable generation integration in the company's Texas service territory, and the necessary legislative strategy to implement such changes, the identification of grant opportunities for the company, the city, or both to increase the integration of renewable generation into the company's Texas generation portfolio, and the identification of potential renewable generation programs to support low-income customers, such as incentives for distributed generation. This item was placed by Representatives Anello, Schwarzwein, and Hernandez.
Thank you, Mayor. We placed this item on the agenda because, if council recalls, a number of weeks ago when the renewable generation study was first presented, a number of us on this council felt that more could be done with specific areas relating to the franchise agreement and the renewable generation study. After the presentation yesterday, I still think that there's some overarching questions relating towards how much the generation study actually fulfills the requirements of the franchise agreement. And so I think it's important to state that and to have this motion read into the record.
Go ahead.
I have a motion, Laura. It's as wordy as the agenda item, so bear with me. A motion to direct the city manager and city attorney to work with El Paso Electric to fully address the 7 deliverables required of the renewable generation study, as identified by the franchise agreement between the city and the utility, including but not limited to: number 1, the possible costs related to the integration of utility-scale renewable generation in the utility company's Texas service territory. Number 2, the legislative or regulatory changes that may be necessary to increase utility-scale renewable generation integration in the company's Texas service territory and the necessary legislative strategy to implement such changes. Number 3, the identification of grant opportunities for the company, the city, or both to increase the integration of renewable generation into the company's Texas generation portfolio. And number 4, the identification of potential renewable generation programs to support low-income customers, such as incentives for distributed generation, and to direct the city manager to identify a reasonable date by which an update will be provided by the El Paso Electric Company to the city to ensure the utility company remains in compliance with the terms of the franchise agreement. And I'm sorry, that's to the city council to ensure the utility company remains in compliance with the terms of the franchise agreement.
Second.
Would you like a copy of this? Yeah. I'm going to give it to her.
Is there a second? Okay, so there's a motion and a second.
I have a question, or not question, just a statement.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, Mayor. So I want to thank Representative Nello, Representative Schwarzwein for sponsoring this item. What I want to convey to members of council and to the body, as well to El Paso Electric, is that what we're asking for is already what's required in the franchise agreement. So it's not something that we're requesting above and beyond. We're asking to help fulfill the unanswered questions that was clearly stipulated in the franchise agreement. Now, I'd be remiss to say that El Paso Electric has on numerous occasions come to council to explain that. In my opinion, and I think others share the same opinion, that needs to be formalized. It needs to be drafted into the renewable energy study, and it needs to be factual, and it has to have as much information as possible. We do recognize that a lot of this is fluid, and we do recognize that technology is evolving every day. But ultimately, we have, the technical aspects of it. We have the total cost. We really need to understand the granular information so that we can share that information back to our constituents and to ratepayers. But I do appreciate all of the communication El Paso Electric has provided to City Council. This collaborative relationship is only going to make our community better. So thank you again to the colleagues for drafting this item, and I certainly support it, and I hope others will too.
Thank you, Representative Hernandez, and I think it's so correct that it's part of the agreement and the franchise agreement, and we're just looking at how do we continue to execute it, but also make it better and accountability. So I agree with you. So thank you for that. Ms.
Mayor,
Prime?
we do have public comment on this item.
Yes, ma'am.
We have Ms. Lisa Turner who signed up to speak.
Where's Ms. Turner? I saw her a minute ago.
She's behind the pole. You can't see. I think the pole is
Behind the pole?
I don't think she has
No.
I don't think she
Okay,
has.
thank you.
Okay, so with that, we have a motion and a second.
Yes, sir, there is a motion and a second. The motion was made by Representative Anello, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Schwartzbein, to direct the city manager and city attorney to work with El Paso Electric to fully address the 7 deliverables required of the renewable generation study as identified by the franchise agreement between the city and the utility, including but not limited to 1, the possible costs related to the integration of utility scale renewable generation in the utility company's Texas service territory, 2, the legislative or regulatory changes that may be necessary to increase utility scale renewable generation integration into the company's Texas service territory and the necessary legislative strategy to implement such changes. 3, the identification of grant opportunities for the company, the city, or both to increase the integration of renewable generation into the company's Texas generation portfolio. And 4, the identification of potential renewable generation programs to support low-income customers, such as incentives for distributed generation, and to direct the city manager to identify a reasonable date by which an update will be provided by El Paso Electric Company to the City Council to ensure the utility company remains in compliance with the terms of the franchise agreement. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. And the voting session and the motion passes unanimously. We now go to page number 7 to the first reading of ordinances. These are items 22 to 27. Is there a motion on the first reading of ordinances?
Second.
There's a motion made by Representative Lizarraga, seconded by Representative Salcido to approve the first reading of ordinances, items 22 to 27. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. And the voting session and the motion passes unanimously. The next item is number 28. This is discussion and action on the award of solicitation number 2021-1347, animal food pallets, grains, etc., rebid to Lab Animals, Inc., DBA Lab Supply.
Go ahead.
Second.
There is a motion made by Representative Lizarraga, seconded by Representative Salcido to approve. On that motion, call for the vote. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. And the voting session and the motion passes unanimously. Item number 29 is discussion and action on the award of solicitation number 2021-1258, animal food to Legend and White Animal Health Corporation.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion made by Representative Salcido, seconded by Representative Molinar to approve. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. End the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. The next item is number 30. This is a public hearing on an ordinance authorizing the city manager to sign a purchase and sale agreement, special warranty deed, and any other documents necessary to convey to Vijay Capital Properties Limited approximately 3.15 acres of land.
You know, we have a couple of people signed up for call to the public, so before we do that, can we have the presentation, please?
Mayor, we don't have anyone on item 30, but we do have
Oh, I thought it was 31. Okay, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. Mayor Pro Tem?
Mayor, this is an item relating to a land sale with the water utility. We postponed it hoping that I would receive a briefing from the water utility. I have not received one at this point. I don't feel comfortable in approving this, and so I would like to make a motion to postpone for 2 weeks till I'm briefed by the water utility about this proposed land sale.
Second.
2 weeks?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. A motion and a second?
Yes, Mayor, there is a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Schwarzwein, seconded by Representative Anello to postpone item 30 for 2 weeks. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
She's not on there.
Okay, she's not, okay. In the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. Representative Hernandez not present. Item number 30 is a public hearing on an ordinance amending Title 10, alcohol prohibited in public
I
places.
think it's 31.
31. You and I are backwards here.
Yes, sir. Item 31 is a public hearing on an ordinance amending Title 10, alcohol prohibited in public places to define homeless shelter, possesses, and possession, and to add homeless shelter to the area where the offense can occur.
Chief Saru?
Good morning, Mayor
Good
and
morning.
Council, Assistant Chief Victor Sarur. So item 31 links with strategic goal number 2, set the standard for a safe and secure city. Basically, we're going to have 3 individuals talking on this ordinance. If we could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So basically, the conversation began in regards to the open ordinance amendment August 3rd, and we did a follow-up with the police department updates and had the first reading 2 weeks ago. So the purpose of starting off with this slide here, it shows the current enforcement under the city code section 1012.050. This is the area marked off as a central business district allowed through the TABC authority, and it shows our enforcement for the previous 2 years and the first 6 months of this year. If we could go to the next slide, please. So the purpose is to improve the quality of life for residents and persons experiencing homeless in and around homeless shelters by reducing nuisances related to drinking and the next few slides are going to be by City Attorney Carlos Armendariz. He's going to speak about the authority, and then we're going to go into the mapping with Lieutenant Gaither.
Thank you, Chief. I'm Assistant City Attorney Carlos Armendariz. Now, the first thing to understand about the open container ordinance and now the amendment we're here on today comes to us through the TABC code. The first section displayed here, section 109.35, allows for us to prohibit open containers and the consumption of alcohol in the central business district. Now below, we see section 109.36. This section functions similarly. Under 109.36, the legislature gave us the authority to prohibit open containers and the consumption of alcohol within 1,000 feet of a homeless shelter or substance abuse treatment center. This pertains to public streets, alleys, and sidewalks, and it doesn't attempt to control other spaces. Next slide, please. This slide points out that the TABC code specifically limits us from further regulating open containers beyond the CBD, the Central Business District, and areas around homeless shelters, substance abuse treatment centers, and around the streets, sidewalks, and alleys. Next slide, please. Now, the aim of this ordinance is not to disturb lawful activities. There are 4 exceptions coming from the TABC code that would also apply to the amendment. The first exception is for special events with a valid permit from the TABC. This could take form as festivities like music festivals or other gatherings. The second exception pertains to the interiors of buildings not owned or controlled by the city. The next exception applies to the inside of residential structures. And finally, the last exception applies to TABC licensed establishments for on-premise consumption. Next slide, please. Now we're looking at a definition for homeless shelter and possession or possesses to the ordinance. Homeless shelter would be defined to mirror the language found in the TABC and will read, a supervised publicly or privately operated shelter or other facility that is designed to provide temporary living accommodations to individuals who lack a fixed, regular, and adequate residence. Possesses or possession is going to be a definition familiar to law enforcement and to city prosecutors alike from our state's penal code. The definition will read, actual care, custody, control, or management. And our last addition to the ordinance is the functional language, making it unlawful to possess an open container or consume alcohol within 1,000 feet of a homeless shelter outside of the Central Business District on public streets, alleys, sidewalks, or pedestrian ways. Now keep in mind the current penalty for Class C misdemeanors is a max fine of $500 without any jail time available. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Lieutenant Gaither from Central Regional Command will be speaking about the locations and mapping.
Good morning, Mayor and Council. The addresses of the shelters listed were received through the Homeless Coalition and may not encompass all shelters throughout the city due to some confidential locations for vulnerable populations. An example of this would be the battered women shelter. If the IT can click on the hyperlink, we can show you a list of from the Homeless Coalition. And if we could go to the next slide, please. This is a mapping example within 1,000 foot as the property lines. Measurements of distance will be determined utilizing ArcGIS pre-printed maps that have a 1,000 foot buffer over the parcel lines of the properties that will be placed in the regional commands. The amendment only applies to public areas and private property is not affected. The example given below is of the Salvation Army located at 4300 East Paisano. Next slide, please. Another example of maps with the 1,000 foot buffer include La Posada Home and Winchester Homes. Also noted within our maps, we've asked them to create a 50 foot warning line, if you want to call it, at 950 feet. That's what the red line is. Officers, before taking any enforcement action, will verify on their pre-printed maps that they are clearly within the boundaries before taking any enforcement action. Next slide.
Thank you, Lieutenant Gaither. Sarud again for the record. So this section will open it up to questions or comments, and I believe we have Mr. John Madrid from the Opportunity Center also speaking.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, can you put up the map of what's designated as the central business district? Thank you again for the presentation.
There you go.
So maybe this might just be obvious already, but the action today would prohibit open container within that area or within those specific buffer zones of the different shelters and other institutions?
Sadhu speaking again, sir. So basically what we wanted to show council today is where the ordinance currently is in effect. So it's in effect there at the El Paso Central Business District. This had to be plotted previously and submitted through TABC for approval. We wanted to show that as the example on the type of enforcement we utilize and how it works in the area. The maps that we're showing afterwards, that would be the inclusion into the current ordinance that would add the definition of homeless shelters and enforcement under the homeless shelters within 1,000 feet.
So this would add additional areas outside of the central business zone?
That is correct, sir.
And the mechanism for this is in what within state law again?
Mr. Armendariz?
Carlos Armendariz again. This comes to us through the TABC code, sections 109.35 and 109.36. Those two statutes give cities the ability to regulate open container consumption of alcohol in those specific places pointed out, the central business districts of the cities, within 1,000 feet of homeless shelters or substance abuse treatment centers. And as you also saw, it forecloses a possibility of implementing other regulation on open container.
And this is probably another obvious question, but this would not discriminate between somebody carrying an open container that would either be somebody that would be at a homeless shelter or a resident that would live a block or across the street from a homeless shelter that had an open container. It would not discriminate. Anybody that had an open container would commit an offense with this.
That's correct. There would be no difference between a local resident who would be in violation of this ordinance and a person who's utilizing a homeless shelter. It's just a blanket measure to regulate the streets, alleys, and sidewalks within those areas designated.
And so what is, just again, just for clarification, but the intent and genesis of these proposed changes came from what exactly? You know, essentially, what is the solution? What is the problem that we're proposing a solution for with these changes?
Representative Sarud again. On August 3rd, we had a discussion in regards to an item placed by District 8 to review whether the open container ordinance can be expanded to other areas, particularly with near the Valverde Neighborhood Association and others. So we were directed back August 3rd in regards to the voting from council to come back with alternatives and recommendations in regards to what other items can be presented to enforce some of the problems associated with public drinking near the areas. And basically that's how it came to the forefront, sir.
And this was something that I know that Representative Lizarga which a lot of these facilities are in her district. She could probably enumerate on that, but I'm assuming that there was complaints and concerns about behavior and conduct around these facilities in a very broad description. Is that correct?
Do you want me to comment on it, or were you asking a representative, DC?
I guess from your perspective, Representative Lizarga could probably also chime in if the mayor would allow her to address it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Representative Lizarga?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes,
Good
ma'am.
morning, everyone. Yes, Representative Schwartzbein, the request came from our neighborhood associations. They were getting a lot of traffic from homeless in those surrounding areas, and so this came as a result of trying to do something responsive to their concerns.
Okay. And then Chief Zaror, are y'all seeing something similar in terms of some of these disruptions in the neighborhoods surrounding these areas from
Yes,
your
sir.
officers?
We're data driven, so one of the difficult things for us to present at council was the fact that historically we don't capture that information on open containers near homeless shelters because it is not currently an offense at the time. But the data and some of the calls for service pointed towards that, and we feel that this would definitely help in protecting everyone. And to be clear, the open container amendment is not targeting the homeless. It actually protects everyone, citizens, neighborhoods, homeless shelters, the employees, and the homeless themselves who are vulnerable at times.
Okay. Well, I think that kind of rounds out the questions. I mean, when this discussion first was had, remember when it was brought up before, the biggest thing that struck me was the fact that in essence, outside of this central business area and if these proposed areas around these homeless centers, is that pretty much it's legal within the city of El Paso to have an open container on any sidewalk or public street. And I was not aware of that at all. And I know that there's issues of concerns about behavior related towards alcohol consumption, but the fact that state law legalizes and allows that state law allows open container on city streets, whether that's on Thunderbird or Cincinnati Street or Piedras, is very surprising and a little bit troubling, but that's what state law is. Is that correct, Chief?
Well, to clarify, sir, there are exceptions, obviously, whether you're in a park, in a vehicle, underage, or outside of an establishment that sells alcohol for off-premises as well. So they're under the age of 21 as well.
Okay. But outside of that, well, learn something every day. All right, thank you again. Appreciate, again, the presentation and the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Anello, followed by Molinar, and then Lizarga.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got a lot of issues with this, and Chief, this isn't really for you. I mean, I know that council put up an item and you all responded to it, and I think the work that you did in response to council was great. I agree with Representative Schwartzbein. I think that if we could really just blanket the whole city with this policy, I would have no issue with it. But I don't know why we are asking PD to essentially patrol homeless shelters. Substance abuse, addiction are very real things that our homeless community deals with. And I think there's a real missed opportunity for us to have worked with nonprofits, social service organizations to deal with this. And I know that the residents are having issues. It must be extremely difficult. But, when someone calls my office and says, there's a homeless individual living in our alley, we don't call PD, we call the Opportunity Center or another organization that can help. And I really wish that had been the solution here, and I have a lot of heartburn about doing this, right? I think that the comment was it's up to a $500 fine for drinking outside of a homeless shelter. So we're just going to be constantly fining individuals in these shelters that can't afford these fines until they're placed in jail. I mean, I don't understand how that's helping the community. But I know that we do have public comment, correct, Ms. Prine?
That is correct.
Yeah, can we, is it possible to
Let's,
take?
let's allow
Okay.
everyone to finish the
Then
dialogue, then
I'll
we'll go
save
there.
the rest of my comments for after public comment. Thank you.
Representative Molinar?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Morning, Chief.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, can you go, IT, can you go back to the slide that shows the citations, please, the amount of citations? Anyways, when they bring that up, do we by any chance happen to have any statistics on what the final disposition of those citations have been? In other words, were they dismissed? Was conviction? Was it spent for a fine? Court costs, etc.?
Good question, Mr. Molinar, Representative Molinar, that is. I could get you that information. I don't have it readily available at the time.
Okay, thank you. You can, and also where you have the different maps, is it possible to enter that information into the mobile data terminals in the vehicles and or give it to Channel 1 for easier access possibly to the field officers?
Yes, sir. Great suggestion. We could definitely do that. We're planning, depending on the outcome of today, get the training out and we have the maps ready as well. Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. Representative Sarga?
Thank you, Mayor. I was just going to say that this process was vetted through multiple PAR officers, multiple neighborhood associations, the nearby business institutions, and also the McGoffin home has also been experiencing a lot of problems. And then also the shelters that we spoke to were also in favor of this. So we have, spent a tremendous amount of time, especially since the start of the pandemic, addressing homelessness and expanding both the services we offer and the partnerships we have with the other providers. And like you were saying, Representative Vanel, we do call those providers if there is a problem. And so this was something that we worked hard on, and I want to thank the police department and everyone who presented today for your hard work on this and coming back with this presentation.
Thank you, Representative. And Mayor, if I may clarify, I said we have John Madrid on the line. It's actually Martin.
Yeah, I didn't want to correct you, Chief, but yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we don't have anyone else signed up. Can we go to call to the public, Ms. Prine?
Yes, sir. The first person is Mr. John Martin. Good morning, Mr. Martin. You'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. My name is John Martin. I'm the Deputy Director for the Opportunity Center for the Homeless. And I do want to point out a couple things. When you saw the presentation by the Chief at this point, you'll notice that the men and the women's shelter, which are located on Myrtle, are just outside of the Central Business District. And so that's 2 of the 5 shelters that we have in that area. The remaining 3, which are the Veterans Transitional Living Center, our Willie Sanchez Center, which is on South Oregon, and the program that we operate at San Fronteras, do fall within those boundaries. So you would be extending that area basically to the northeast. Let me clarify that, to the northeast. As it relates to the ordinance itself, we are actually in favor of the ordinance because we are concerned with the safety and the well-being of those that are within our care. And what we have historically seen, which I know many of you have heard concerns expressed to you by the public, is encampments that are forming immediately around, especially the men and the women's shelter, Noble Street being an example. Now, saying that we are in favor of the ordinance, I do want to agree with Representative Anello. One of the concerns that we do have is as it relates to enforcement. Yes, it is a Class C misdemeanor. It comes with a $500 fine. As you work with the homeless, you're working with individuals that don't have the ability to pay the fine, and if there is a slim chance that they do, I'm just going to be quite blunt, they have no desire to pay the fine. Okay? And so we don't want to create a cycle of homelessness as it relates to in and out of the county jail as an example. And I would like to suggest that we have some significant discussions with regard to the approach that we take. It could be modeled, for example, after the CIT program. And the reason I bring the CIT program up to the forefront is it's focused on those that have a significant mental health diagnosis. We need to recognize in most cases, especially with regard to alcohol and substance abuse, it's a symptom, it's not the cause. And so we as a community need to look at what the underlying cause is, and that's going to be the mental health related issues. It's time as a community to include the city, the county, the different providers to work together to develop a comprehensive street outreach program that can accompany PD when they reach out to these groups so that we have effective responses and we have adequate services for these individuals to potentially include housing. With that said, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Jose Gaston Barriga. He will be followed by Ms. Lisa Turner. Good morning, Mr. Barriga. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Can
sir.
you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay. One of the things that I see is there's other cities that have gone through the same thing. Some cases are, for instance, related to the people and versus Kellogg, and they had run to the same situation, just like Mr. Danielo have saying and the gentleman. That the main problem is they addressing the crime rather than the disease. The person going to jail, the only thing that you're gonna do is that this is what you're gonna do. That person is gonna do time served, and then that person is gonna make an encounter with the police officer, and gonna go to jail, gonna get out, gonna make an encounter with the police officer. It's gonna get out, it's gonna get in. And guess what's gonna happen? It's gonna happen the same thing that happened a few weeks ago. That individual's gonna get beat. It's no cameras that can actually validate that. So in order to prevent that, I make it simple. Don't put more restrictions. I mean, you already, to me, you're targeting the homeless population. I mean, it's one, somebody got beat up. Two, you're putting a restriction. You try to give him the fine. I don't know. That's two things at the same time. And the other one that I'm going to talk in a few is going to be public transportation. You do not provide public transportation to the homeless population on Sundays. So that's three arguments that I have. So if you put this today, you're actually giving a cruel punishment to them. So you think about it. I'm not against, so I'm not in favor. It doesn't affect me, affect them, affect the veterans, affect the persons that have mental problems. They have they have the disease of alcoholism. What are you doing about that? Instead of doing this, what you should be doing is you should be planning, you should be thinking how to give the police officer Narcan. So when you got the police officer that got in contact with amphetamines, you don't got a police officer that pass out and die. That's the time it should be invested. No should be invested in something that's wasting time. Think about that. Alcohol is something, people are dying in the road. People are not dying on the street because they're consuming alcohol. So that's something to consider. Consider the main accidents, not something but something small. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ms. Lisa Turner. Good morning, Ms. Turner. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mayor Council.
Welcome back, Ms. Turner.
As I listen to this, I have problems. First problem is the police officers are going to have to profile somebody. They're going to have to determine, they have an open container. Is this person a resident or are they homeless before they make a decision? You'll get sued for that. This ordinance is crafted to single out those who are homeless. You have made exceptions for everybody else, but if you're homeless, you're going to pay. And then you're going to have this unending circle between somebody who's an alcoholic and is drinking, going to jail, spending time in jail, come back is homeless, drinking, back in jail, back and forth, back and forth. The cycle is not broken. You take up time with police, court time, paying for people in jail, possible injuries to our officers. This needs to be rethought. What is the problem? Define the problem, then try to come up with a solution. This is not a solution. This only perpetrates the homelessness that we have in this community. And you are targeting, you're going to get hit with lawsuits for profiling and discrimination because you have singled out a portion of our population for special enforcement. And they're going to nail you to the wall. The only good thing coming out of that is they won't be homeless anymore. They'll have a lot of money to live on. I ask that you rethink this, postpone it, go back, and look at the issue. Maybe you can find something that will actually work. Incarceration of the homeless never works. It hasn't worked. It's not going to work. You got to be smarter than the rock you're trying to break. So please postpone this and rethink it. Thank you.
That concludes public comment on this item, Mayor.
Thank you. We have Representative Molinar.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you.
Chief Zarud, right now, currently, do you know if the Paso County Detention Center is accepting Class C violations, like someone has 1098 or outstanding traffic tickets?
Yes, sir. My understanding is that for all patients. And if I may, I want to clarify some of the these span. We've had this open container ordinance applicable to the downtown business district since the 90s. It's been currently in effect, and also when we look at this ordinance in regard to the 1,000-foot buffer and all, one of the things we need to also keep in mind, and I stated earlier, it's not targeting the homeless individuals. It's protecting the neighborhood, the homeless shelters, the homeless individuals, because they can be vulnerable as well. Alcohol is not allowed in homeless shelters. So they get placed sometimes in a situation where they might have the alcohol prior to going in there, and this is where other individuals come back and exploit them as well. When we look at this in regards to the end result of a Class C, it's a Class C citation. If we address it at that point, no one's talking about picking up individuals and incarcerating them. They have the opportunity in a courtroom to state their case as well. So again, it's to protect everyone, to include the homeless.
That's it? Thank you. Now we have District 5, Representative Salcido, and then we'll go to Mayor Pro Tem since you've already spoken. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the presentation, Chief. I just have a couple of questions. You mentioned, is this just to blanket homeless, or you said the general public?
The general public representative. So basically, it's not going to impact anyone living on their private property or their backyard as such. This is only for the alleys, the streets, and the sidewalks. Again, to make sure that this is understood clearly, it will address anyone in the area and not just the homeless. Actually, it protects the homeless, like I stated earlier. They're vulnerable. They also need help. So by not being allowed, obviously, for obvious reasons, into a homeless shelter with alcohol, sometimes they're exploited on the outside part of the areas. And I think this is something that will assist them as well.
Okay, thank you. And I had another question. Is there a way of administratively adding to the process where before the citation is given that they are directed to receive some mental health?
Representative Salcido, we wouldn't be able to I think earlier there was made reference to the CIT team. And although we all have training in mental health and such, this would have to be something that would have to be explored. I wouldn't be in the position to say we could go administrative on it from the beginning or make references on it. Because again, it's not just going to be the homeless that are out there that are going to be receiving or being addressed in regards to this ordinance. It's going to be other individuals that come into the area as well to familiar territory and exploiting on the homeless.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative Salcido. Mayor Pro Tem.
I have a couple other questions. Some of these may already have been answered, so my apologies in advance. One of the things that we hear about is the staffing levels relating to the police department, and even though we've made strides as a council to look at hiring additional officers, the current staffing levels is something that's referred to both to the council and also to regular residents and constituents in terms of response times and other response. So I'm just kind of curious, with this sort of change that we would be having here, this ordinance change, do we really have the current bandwidth with our current police department staffing levels to deal with this?
Sure. So yes, obviously our current staffing is always going to be an impact in regards to our response for calls for service and such. So we don't have officers to be at every location within the 1,000 feet to look at this, but it's a tool that lets us address and perhaps prevent other crimes from occurring when we get there in the event there is a violation going on. So one of the previous presentations with City Council, we had also talked about calls for service and subjects disturbing in the area and such. So to answer your question, we can't be there at every location. We don't have that staffing, but at the same time, we do know that when we get there, and if it's a tool that we could utilize to minimize and prevent other crimes from occurring or physical fights occurring, then it's something we could utilize.
Would there be any, again, help me understand, I guess, the process from operations relating to PD. If there was a call-in for an inebriated person near a homeless shelter or some of these institutions, would there be a decision made to send out a CFT crew, or CIT crew, sorry, or would a CIT unit, or would it be whatever officer was available? Would there be a preference made? Would there be a decision made? I'm just trying to understand to help inform my decision on this.
Yeah, so basically, if we receive a call, it would be the units that are available or the unit that is available. The CIT team is not large enough or staffed enough to be able to address all the calls in regards to mental illness as well as these calls. It's just an additional tool, sir.
Okay, so there wouldn't be a decision made whether to send a CIT unit, or it would just basically be whoever was available?
It would not be a CIT team unit, sir. It would be a unit dispatched from the region, a patrol unit.
From the, I guess that's the central command, or the downtown metro, for most of these.
Depending on the location and such, it would be if it's within central, it would be a central regional command, and depending on other calls for service as well, and the priority level given at the time, and whether there's any indication that it's gonna get aggressive or such in regards to subjects disturbing drinking alcohol. So every situation varies, but in general, the calls are handled by the patrol units within the region.
And are there CIT units for each region, or are they're located within which regional centers?
The CIT unit is located within, well, they respond to the calls for service in regards to mental health within in the city. So they have a span throughout the city, and it all depends on what is being addressed at that time. So they would, if a unit's at Pebble Hills and they need one at the Mission Valley Regional Command, they would dispatch patrol but request the CIT unit as soon as they are available.
And where is the CIT unit housed? Do they have like a home base command
They're
center?
housed police headquarters at 910 North Rainer, sir.
Okay, thank you. And then a couple other questions. So what would be the proposed punishment for a violation of this open container ordinance?
Well, I won't refer to it as a punishment. If the officers take action and decide based on the evidence and it is an open container, they would issue a Class C citation.
And that would be a monetary cost, or that would be jail time?
Like Mr. Armendariz mentioned earlier, sir, it would be up to a $500 fine. Whether the individual pays or sets it up for court or fights it in court, that would determine the additional steps after that.
And that $500 would be whether or not it was somebody that was having an open container outside their own home, across from a homeless shelter, or somebody who was homeless themselves. What occurs if the person who is yes, sir? I don't know who
For a
that
moment.
was. Yes?
Again, Carlos Alvarez, Assistant City Attorney. I do prosecute cases at the municipal courts, and I'd just like to describe some of the possible penalties because you were inquiring.
Yes.
Now, a lot of our cases in the municipal court have a $500 max fine, but that doesn't necessarily mean in practice that defendants are getting that sort of punishment. We could do anything from a special expense fee, a low fee, we could do a reduced fee, we could offset the fine with community service, and we can also give a deferred disposition, meaning if the defendant doesn't pick up a second case during the allotted time frame, the case would get dismissed. So there are several options as a city prosecutor to take into consideration more of the factors and taking a look at the defendant specifically to see their conditions and what would be the best method to deal with their particular set of circumstances.
I would, again, probably don't want to assume anything, but if they refuse, if they don't pay or they don't show up to court, then a warrant could be issued for their arrest.
That is correct. Warrants can be issued for failure to appear.
So then a warrant would be added.
And that's outside of our control as prosecutors and outside of law enforcement's control as well.
So that would be a burden placed on a homeless person who then, if they could not pay, then they would, or not show up to, okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Representative Hernandez, followed by Representative Lasarga. All right, we'll go to Representative Hernandez. Well, she's not there, so we'll go to you.
Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my button. I want to clarify something. So the CIT unit is the crisis intervention team, so it is for individuals experiencing mental health crisis. While we know that a large population of our unhoused individuals do have issues with mental health, have been diagnosed with mental health. If they are not in crisis, the CIT team is not appropriate for them. And so, and I'm not trying to attack, I'm just trying to clarify, right? So if someone is unhoused, they're at a shelter, they're drinking, they're not necessarily in crisis. So it's not necessarily the right team to be answering them. And like Chief Zaora said, they are extremely unfunded, a very small unit. They're not even a 24-hour unit, so they're also, but that doesn't even matter. The fact of the matter is, I want to go back to what I said before, is I don't think that this should be a PD issue. I think there are substance abuse organizations that could help. There are social services that could help. And I actually want to see, is there anyone from community development on the line? Community and human development, I apologize.
Yeah. Right here.
Is that Nicole? Sorry, Nicole, I can't really see the screen. So my question is, I know that y'all have been working on the issue for a long time. I know there's been a conversation about long-term shelters, outreach, what we're considering wraparound services within the city. Can you talk at all about that and if this issue has been a part of that conversation?
Absolutely, and thank you, Representative Nicole Farini, Chief Resilience Officer, for the record. So, I mean, what we're talking about here is street outreach, and it's something that I think we learned a lot about and invested quite heavily in over the course of COVID-19, using the federal dollars that came in to address that. You know, some of the initial issues that I believe Representative Lizarga brought up that were in and around the Delta site shelter that we worked very closely with the Opportunity Center to stand up so that we could protect folks. A lot of times, you know, we would receive a call that there was a concern about an individual. We would immediately contact the folks at the Opportunity Center, typically at the Delta site, and they would deploy someone trained to have a conversation with someone experiencing homelessness about what services were available and make that sort of offer to them to intervene prior to it becoming a law enforcement issue. And so we saw a lot of success with that. We're continuing to see some success with that. We do fund street outreach teams through nonprofits locally. That is entirely federally funded at this time, and it's extremely limited. And so I think what we're seeing here is that there is a need for us to look more deeply into how we might better organize, deploy, formalize, and fund street outreach so that we can, in fact, protect those individuals and allow law enforcement to intervene when it's appropriate, to your point. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to know what services we have available, what the options are. I mean, I know, listen, Representative Lizarga, I know that your constituents have been upset about this. I absolutely understand that that's been a concern. But I just think that we should be making the right policy decisions. And again, I know I've already said this, Chief Zarora, I know that y'all were just responding to what council asked, and you created a policy within your means. I just don't agree that it is good for the long term of this community and or that it's going to solve a problem. I do have one last question for the municipal judge on the line, and I'm so sorry that I don't know your name to address you directly. But my question is, does the municipal court work? I know the county has the Takumi program. Do we work with that program at all?
I believe you were calling for Mr. Armendariz.
Thank you. Mr. Armendariz, I'll repeat my question. So I said that I know that the county has the Takumi program, which is to help with recidivism. I can't say that word. Recidivism with mainly unhoused or people in mental health crisis. And I don't know if the municipal court has a program like that at all. Recidivism?
You know, I'm not familiar with that program. It hasn't been brought to my attention. So I would say that, I mean, absent of that knowledge, that it may not exist, but I'd have to take a second look and inform you at a later time if it does, in fact.
I mean, I just want clarification from you. From my understanding, we do not have that program. But thank you for that clarification. I think that there are a lot of organizations. I know that we've been working with the Paso del Norte Foundation to put together a homeless coalition as part of the mental health coalition. I think that there could be a better program out there. And I know that, again, Representative Lizarga, your constituents are frustrated and they want something resolved. But I don't feel comfortable supporting something out of kind of fear and anger and not out of the benefit for this community. So I'm not going to be supporting this item. Thank you.
Up next, I think, is Representative Molinar, followed by Representative Lizarga.
And Representative Hernandez has requested to speak.
Sorry. Representative Hernandez and then Representative Lizarga. My apologies.
Am I up?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I don't have any questions for staff, but I do want to just share the perspective from our district and the constituents who reached out to our office. I'm in support of this policy change, primarily because the constituents, not only constituents but businesses, have been drastically affected by not only persons who are unhoused, but persons who live in close proximity to homeless shelter. There is a direct correlation, and the unfortunate truth is that there is. I would have loved to see a citywide mandate as opposed to targeting specific areas. However, I do recognize that policy should, address the symptom and not, be, general to an entire population that's not experiencing it. So some of the concerns our office has heard are persons sleeping on benches who are inebriated, whether or not we cannot determine whether or not they are homeless. So what I like about this policy is that it's going to give a violation to any person regardless of sex, gender, so it's non-discriminatory, in my opinion. However, persons who are drinking outside of on public right-of-ways. They're on sidewalks, they're hanging out on benches, our Sun Metro benches, and they're sleeping there as well. And there has been so many opportunities for city staff to respond, and they have. And that's been led by Representative Lizarraga's office to, bring together coalitions with PAR officers and residents of neighborhood associations. And it's very clear that the problems that they're experiencing can help be addressed by this policy. But I don't want to dismiss the concern of social services and the response to that. Any concern is going to require government support in a form of policy as well as social services. So this has to be a multifaceted approach to how we respond to the crisis that we're seeing in a lot of these neighborhoods. In addition to that, you have businesses who are overselling and overserving to persons who are already inebriated. So this could also send a message to businesses to stop selling to persons who are already drunk. And, our office, as well as Representative Lizarraga's offices, have been working with TABC, been working with residents to report those complaints. So again, I agree that this should not just be a policy where we respond, incarcerate, and give citations, but also to put together, CFT programs so that we can work with homeless organizations, with our community development folks, and with police, as well as our prosecutors, so that we can come up with an approach, a program. This policy is only going to help officers to identify when there is a problem on the street. That communication should and must go to organizations who can help respond to why these persons are on the sidewalks or on the streets or in alleyways or on some metro bus stations drinking. That's what's happening. And residents are tired, they're fed up, they're looking for a response. And so I think this is one response. I don't think this is the end of the discussion. I do support our community development group looking for ways for alternative revenue sources so that we can respond on the street. This policy is not going to require substantial revenues. It's going to require PD to respond, which they're already doing. PD's already responding, PAR officers are already responding, and they will tell you that not all of those persons are homeless. A lot of those persons are same people who are not allowed to go back into their home, and they're forced to go to the street to drink because their families have essentially abandoned them. And so the problem is more than just homeless, which is why I wanted to advocate for a citywide mandate. But at this point in time, I think a pilot program is appropriate. And then with data, as Chief Zaru said, with data, we can look at how we can expand that to other areas that are experiencing the same problem. But anyway, I just wanted to express my support for this change, and to reiterate that we can't stop the conversation there. There has to be a multifaceted approach to how we address this concern. Thank you.
Representative Lizarraga.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Representative Hernandez, for your comments, and as well to my other colleagues. I really wish that state law was different and that we would be allowed to simply restrict open containers throughout the entire city. That's what we were initially looking at, but obviously Texas law does not allow that. I would ask that we pass this today. I admit it will be somewhat of a Band-Aid on the problem right now, and I commit to continuing to work with the community of providers to add more alternative, non-punitive measures to the response and possibly bringing back amendments in the near future. In the past year, we have created non-police street outreach teams in partnership with other providers, and they now provide the initial response to calls about the homeless. That program is working great. I hope that this conversation shows that my colleagues are willing to increase the funding for expanded street outreach. For now, this ordinance change provides an additional tool in the more complicated cases that the street outreach teams are not able to address. Police officers, as always, will be able to exercise discretion and not arrest or find people who aren't causing additional problems. This is for the more extreme cases. I do wish that those with concerns had brought this up to me or staff before this point. We have been working on this for months. Hundreds of people, organizations, businesses, etc., have given their input. We understand that it is sensitive, and we have tried very hard to find a balance. This is not being done out of fear and anger, as Repinello said. We have considered it very thoughtfully and carefully. Again, I'm open for adjustment of this in the near future after we see what the implementation looks like. But I would like to pass this today. I would hate for a policy change that has the support of residents, neighborhoods, the business community, the police, and the homeless shelters themselves. It is rare to have everyone on board die here because of opposition from colleagues who were not involved in crafting it. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Is there anybody else that has any other comments? Okay, well, I have, what? Anyways, I do have a concern that even though it's not discriminatory in practice, it basically sends out a net that would affect anybody within the buffer area of a homeless shelter. Most homeless shelters and other institutions like that are located in some of the most vulnerable and disenfranchised communities and neighborhoods that we have in our city. The kind of neighborhoods and the kind of places where having a misdemeanor on there for outside drinking would not be something that would be easily attainable to hire a lawyer or to pay off. And so I have some concerns. I also recognize too the concerns from the neighborhood and neighborhood associations as well. I too agree with you, Representative Lizarga. It would be great to have more members of this council be involved in crafting this. I think your office was made aware of it, but I'm not sure the entirety of the council was in terms of crafting this. So if there's nobody else that has anything else at this time, I think we can call the question.
We don't have a motion at this time yet, Mayor Pro Tem.
Mayor Pro Tem. May I speak?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
One thing I'd like to point out, but there's, I believe it was Lieutenant Gaither mentioned that there was a list of different homeless shelters. However, that information is not in the backup. I personally would like to see if there's any in the Northeast that I'm aware of. No, but it does affect the entire community, the entire city, and I would at this time make a motion to postpone at least for 2 weeks.
Is there a second to that motion? I'd like to make a set. If not, then I'll second Representative Molinar's motion.
And this is to postpone for 2 weeks, correct?
Yes. And if
that's correct, to give us the ample time to get all the backup data.
Also, too, I don't know if staff can brief us individually, but I also would want to understand more in terms of the state statute that states clearly the ability, because I do agree with Representative Anello, Hernandez, alternate Mayor Pro Tem Lizarga, that really I think what would be beneficial is a much more blanket open container law. I don't think that anybody, whether they're within 1,000 feet of a homeless shelter or living in any part of the city, really has the need to walk around with an open container.
Yes, and if the postponement stands, we'll provide the individual briefings as you requested.
Thank you.
There is a motion and a second to postpone the item for 2 weeks. On that motion, call for the vote.
Chizuru, did you have your hand up? Do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to make reference in regards to Representative Schwartzbein. We spoke about this on August 3rd. We also did it on the police follow-up presentations on ordinances September 14th and came back for the first reading September 28th. So this would be the fourth time we've talked about it. And also we've got the backup maps to the other areas of I know Representative Molinar asked questions about other areas in the town, and Lieutenant Gaither could chime in on that as well.
Currently, there's a vote active right now, so.
The voting session is open, Council. Representative Hernandez?
Yes, I can hear. Let me put my...
Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. In the voting session, and the motion passes with 5 affirmative votes. Representative Lizarraga voting nay. The motion does pass. Mayor Pro Tem, it is 10:49. Would you like to recess this meeting to conduct the Mass Transit Department Board meeting?
Yes, but if we could just have a short 5-minute recess in case anybody needs to use the facilities or freshen up a cup of coffee.
May we have a motion and a second to recess the meeting, please?
Motion to recess.
Yeah.
There's a motion and a second to recess the regular city council meeting. All in favor?
All right.
Yes.
So we'll be coming back at 11 in
Anyone
5 minutes.
opposed? And the meeting is in recess
Till 11?
Till 11.
until 11 o'clock. Thank you. Yes, Mayor. We
We're
do
ready
have a
for mass
quorum.
transit. Yes, ma'am.
Good morning. This is a meeting of the Mass Transit Department Board for Tuesday, October 12th, 2021. Present is Board Chair Leeser and Board Members Schwartzwein, Anello, Molinar, Salcido, Lizarraga, and Board Member Hernandez is joining us virtually. Board Members Rivera and Rodriguez have asked to be excused this morning. We begin with call to the public. This morning we have 2 members of the public that signed up to speak. The first person is Mr. Steven Strummer. His topic is thanks for the 2 new bus shelters at South Mesa Hills, Route 13 and McRae and Gateway Boulevard, bus route number 8. Good morning, Mr. Strummer. You'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Lisa.
Yes, sir.
I wanted to thank the administration and women and men of Sun Metro for their bravery, strength, and enduring courage throughout this pandemic. Last winter, December of 20 to February 21, Sun Metro's Route 52 Pebble Hills bus had a glitch where the scheduled route did not take place from Acer south on McRae to the Wedgwood extension. Sun Metro called me back and corrected this in March. The response was excellent. It is far better than any city I know of in the United States. I wanted to thank Sun Metro's administration profusely for these things and the new bus shelters on Viscount Boulevard, the 2 of them, and for the places for the buses to stop there. I wanted to thank them with tears for the new shelters on Gateway West for the number 8 and the 72 on McRae, and the new bus shelter at South Mesa Hills and Chromo Dry on the routes 13 and 14. Because of these things, my life is richer, fuller, deeper than words can ever express here. There is also, as a note, a medium-sized green tree that blocks the view of the drivers on the Viscount Boulevard inbound at the multipurpose center, so bus drivers can't see. This occurs from May through October. So the bus drivers have to slam on the brakes because they can't see. But I just wanted to say that this needs an evaluation. I have profuse thanks for Sun Metro and for each of your time hearing me. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you, sir. The next speaker is Mr. Jose Gaston Barriga. Mr. Barriga's topic is public transportation. Good morning, Mr. Barriga. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning again, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm Jose Barriga, and I would like to talk about the benefits of public transportation. Because public transportation supports the community with service to special events, such as public events, celebrations, and holidays. Public transportation enhances freedom because it provides us with freedom to live our life, pursue opportunities, make choices, and enjoy greater mobility. It helps us create neighborhoods that are strong, an environment that is clean, and an economy that is prosperous. Public transportation make it possible for millions of people to access work, schools, medical appointments, and other everyday activities. Everyday transit allows people here in El Paso from every walk of life to make decisions and improve the quality of their life, such as doing their part to improve air quality and saving energy. Public transportation creates stronger, more livable communities. It reduces traffic congestion and lessens commute times. With public transportation, open spaces can be preserved, pedestrian-only zones can be created, a community appearance can be enhanced, and fewer cars can be needed. Public transportation supports the cleaner air. It reduces annual emissions of the pollutants that create smog. Poor people stay stuck at home with no affordable, safe, efficient, and accessible transportation alternative. Public funding goes to support this, can go to class-biased policies that may take resources from basic transportation services where they're needed the most. A city transportation system can tell a lot about a society. It can tell about racism, economic injustice, and environmental degradation. Here in El Paso, there are many people who, because of their age, mobility, and economic standing, rely on public transportation for access to essential services. Without access to transportation on Sunday, many people are locked out of opportunities for city organized cultural public events, such as Shock of the Block, or for the upcoming Sunday Halloween celebration in many rec centers. Restricting public transportation on Sundays will be something that we can keep in mind. With Section 601, the state, no person in the United States shall, on the grounds of race, colors, or national origin, be excluded from participating in or denied of the benefits or subjected to discrimination on any
Thank
program.
you, Mr. Barriga.
Well, thank you. Just think about that, what I say. That's Title 6. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you, sir.
That concludes call to the public. We now move to the consent agenda. All matters listed under the consent agenda will be considered by Mass Transit Department Board to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless separate discussion is requested by board members. Prior to the vote, members of the audience may ask questions regarding items on the consent agenda. When the vote has been taken, if an item has not been called up for separate discussion, the item has been approved. The Mass Transit Department Board may, however, reconsider any item at any time during the meeting.
Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
And board members, if I can request to include on item number 2 to excuse board members Rodriguez and Rivera from this meeting.
Please do.
Thank you. So there's a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. On that motion, board member Schwartzwein.
Aye.
Anello.
Aye.
Hernandez.
Yes.
Molinar.
Aye.
Salcido.
Aye.
Lizarraga. Board Chair Leeser.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously. That brings us to the end of the agenda. May we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn the Mass Transit Department Board meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the Mass Transit Department Board meeting for Tuesday, October 12th, 2021 is adjourned at 11:09 a.m. Mayor, would you like to reconvene the regular City Council meeting?
Please.
May we have a motion to reconvene the regular City Council meeting?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to reconvene the regular City Council meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? And the regular meeting is back in session at 11:09 a.m. We're on page number 12, item number 34, and this is a public hearing on an ordinance to amend Title 5, Sexually Oriented Businesses Employee License.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Representatives, Tony de la Cruz, Planning and Inspections. Item 34 is the second reading of an ordinance amending Title 5, Business License and Permit Regulations, Chapter 5.09, Sexually Oriented Businesses. The amendment is to keep the city in line with Texas Senate Bill 315 that was approved by the state legislature and went into effect September 1st. The amendment regulates or modifies the age requirements for employees of sexually oriented businesses from a minimum age of 18 to 21.
Second.
Mayor, we do have public comment on this item.
Please.
Thank you, Ms. Turner. Good morning, ma'am.
Good morning. So this was a state requirement that you were forced to change?
Yes. It's a requirement by the state in terms of the age for employees.
Okay, thank you.
That concludes public comment on this item.
Good, we had a motion and a second.
Yes, there is a motion made by Representative Lizarraga, seconded by Representative Molinar to approve. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. In the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. Items 35, 36, and 37 are related. They're title changes. Mayor, would you like to take them together or separately?
We can take them together.
Thank you. Item 35 is a public hearing on an ordinance amending Title 19 subdivision and development plats to update references in the title, correct typographical errors, provide for submittal of electronic applications, and clarify presentation of final plats. Item 36 is a public hearing on an ordinance amending various sections of Title 20 zoning to update code reference languages. And number 37 is a public hearing on an ordinance amending Title 21 Smart Code Building Scale Plans to calibrate the Smart Code to the local character of the place and local conditions.
Go ahead. Anyone have a motion or?
Move to approve.
Second.
We do have public comment on item number 36 on the ordinance amending Title 20. We
Yes,
have
ma'am.
Ms. Lisa Turner.
You want to speak on it, Ms. Turner? Yeah, I didn't know if that was the one.
What is the motivation for the changes?
I'll ask the planning, go ahead, Karina.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if you wanted me to respond. Karina Brazgala, Planning and Inspection. So, Ms. Turner, members of council and mayor, the motivation behind all three of these changes is a simple cleanup. We are removing language that is no longer applicable and references to dates or programs that have expired. So it's a simple cleanup. We had a little bit of time on our hands at the beginning of the pandemic. We thought we'd get rid of some of these for clarity with our public and our applicants.
Thank you, Karina.
There are no
Ms. Turner's saying yes, so for that we have a motion and a second.
Yes, Mayor, there's a motion made by Representative Molinar, seconded by Representative Salcido to approve, and this is for items 35, 36, and 37. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. In the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. Next item is number 38. This is a public hearing on an ordinance changing the zoning at 5984 Sixta Drive from RMH Residential Mobile Home to R3 Residential.
Go ahead. Representative Salcido? No, okay, you turned it on.
I was looking for the item.
Oh. Sam Molinar? No?
No.
Oh, okay.
Move to approve.
Representative Lizarraga made a motion to approve. Will you
Second.
Thank you. Seconded by Representative Molinar. There's no public comment on this item. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. In the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. The next item is number 39, and this is a public hearing on an ordinance changing the zoning of parcels 1 and 2 from SCZ Smart Code to NOS Natural Open Space. This is Northwest El Paso, abutting the Franklin Mountain State Park.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, this is just a cleanup item relating to the citizens petition relating to TERS 12, and also the action that this council took to establish a conservation easement on the area referred to as the Lost Dog Trail area. So merely what this does is, again, further codify that area to be preserved in perpetuity as natural open space by changing the zoning from SMAR code to natural open space, which is most appropriate as this area is now conserved in perpetuity with a conservation easement as natural open space. And I want to again thank my colleagues for the support of that conservation easement and for the citizens of El Paso for the citizen petition which kicked the ball off to make this all happen. So,
Thank you.
move to approve.
Second.
There is a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Schwarzbein, seconded by Representative Anello to approve. Item number 39. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. And the voting session? And the motion passes unanimously. Item number 41 is discussion and action on a resolution authorizing the City of El Paso's participation as a member of the West Texas Aerospace and Defense Manufacturing Coalition.
Move to approve.
Second.
Yeah, Mayor, before we actually get the briefings on this, I'd just like to make a quick comment. So today, Council, you're going to hear two proposals, actually, in 41 and item 42, both on aerospace and defense manufacturing as well as bio-medtech proposal. And both of the proposals are in key target industry clusters in our community. As we've looked at these and we've received EDA guidance from the Economic Development Administration, quite frankly, the guidance from the EDA has been mixed and rather inconsistent in terms of the number of applications that a community can submit. Despite that, the one consistent message that's come from the EDA is that any good proposal that's submitted by a community will stand on its own. And so again, since both proposals support significant advancement in key target industry clusters, the staff recommendation that precedes the briefings you're going to get for your consideration is that you as a council support both of the proposals that'll be briefed today. And Elizabeth Triggs will go through each of the presentations so you can see the strengths of both.
Mayor, can we just take items 41 and 42 together at this time?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Item number 42 is discussion and action on a resolution authorizing the City of El Paso's participation as a coalition member with the Medical Center of the Americas Foundation.
Elizabeth Triggs, Economic Development. If IT doesn't mind bringing up the presentation for item 41, please. So while that's bringing up, as Carrie mentioned, the city's received 2 invitations to participate as a coalition member in 2 applications to the Economic Development Administration's Buildback Better Regional Challenge. This challenge is really a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to secure 25 million up to 100 million in federal funding to grow a new or scale an existing industry cluster to support our regional economy and make it more resilient to future shocks, such as we experienced with the COVID-19 pandemic. It's made possible through $3 billion in supplemental funding allocated to the EDA through the Biden administration's American Rescue Plan Act. And as we mentioned previously, items 41 and 42 summarize each of the proposals. Next slide, please. So with respect to item 41, Council is specifically being asked to approve a resolution that authorizes the city's participation in the West Texas Aerospace and Defense Manufacturing Coalition. The coalition is led by UTEP's Aerospace Center, and also authorizing the mayor to sign a letter of support for the coalition submission of its application named Reclaiming Aerospace and Defense Manufacturing Dominance Through Frontier Technologies to Phase 1 of the EDA's Build Back Better Challenge. Next slide, please. Just for context, the next couple of slides talk a little bit more about the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. The challenge is one of 6 programs funded through the American Rescue Plan and currently available through the EDA. The purpose of this $3 billion in supplemental funding is to really accelerate economic recovery from the coronavirus pandemic, and also to build local economies that will be more resilient to future shocks. A third of the total supplemental funding, so a total of $1 billion, has been allocated to the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. This is a national competition, so typically with EDA grants, we compete regionally. But in this case, we'll be competing nationally, and is really a huge opportunity to secure funding to build out or scale industry cluster that are critical for our community. In total, we anticipate that 20 to 30 communities across the U.S. will be successful in securing grant dollars. Next slide, please. So again, this challenge it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It is really intended to transform regional economies through a collection of collaborative, aligned projects. So what you'll see that's a little bit different from typical EDA grants is that this one asks the communities that are submitting to identify 3 to 8 projects that support a regional cluster. So it's a really cool initiative that allows us to do quite a bit with a huge injection of federal funding. Next slide, please. Key elements to a successful proposal that the EDA has identified include addressing these 4 categories that you see on your screen. The first is that proposals should start and grow workforce development programs to support the needs of existing and future industries. When we're looking to bring in new companies, one of the biggest things that we see is that we need workforce training. So it's really critical that we build in as one of the 3 to 8 projects in the proposal, the opportunity to build out that workforce training needed to support the aerospace and defense manufacturing industry. The second is support entrepreneurs to commercialize technologies. And so this is really a focus on the future. This grant isn't just about responding to COVID, but it's about making ourselves more resilient, and so advancing future technologies. The third is to create and scale visionary goals, partnerships, and plans for the future. That speaks to, again, thinking about how we can be more resilient long after the federal dollars have been awarded. And fourth, build the infrastructure needed to make the projects possible, benefiting the region in an inclusive and equitable manner. We know that the Biden administration has a heavy focus on equity and inclusiveness, and so this grant opportunity is no exception, which is why it's really critical that we show there is a regional benefit here. And it's not just one section of the city that's benefiting, but not even just one part of the county, but that we're really having a far reach throughout the whole southern New Mexico, West Texas region. And finally, successful proposals should also identify, make use of, enhance regional assets. It's important that we point out how we're making use of the assets that we do have in our region. Align the coalition's vision and with existing or prospective industry needs and strong leadership from the private sector. Also, that there are plans to maintain or improve the cluster's economic growth in the years following the award. Again, resiliency is huge here. And finally, ensure proposed projects benefits are shared across all affected communities. So, as I mentioned before, this resolution is authorizing the city to participate as a coalition member and submit for the first phase of the Build Back Better Regional Challenge. The challenge is actually a 2-part competition. Phase 1 will award 50 to 60 successful applicants technical assistance grants to assist the applicants in planning and preparing for Phase 2 submission, which is the implementation grant. Grants awarded under Phase 1 are estimated to be in the amount of about $500,000 per region. No local match is required at this time. Applications are due October 19th, which is why it's critical that we bring these to you now, and awardees will be announced in December. Under Phase 2, 20 to 30 of the successful Phase 1 applicants will be awarded implementation grants to grow or scale their selected industry cluster. Grants are anticipated to range from $25 million up to $100 million per region and are due March 15th, 2022. For Phase 2, there is, as the case with most federal grants, there is a 20% local match required. If we are successful in Phase 1, we will return to Council prior to Phase 2 submission to provide additional detail regarding the individual project budgets and also what the city is expected to provide in terms of a local match. Next slide, please. So the following slides provide detail on the aerospace and defense manufacturing regional growth cluster opportunity. This proposal recognizes and seeks to reinvent our area's historical roots in manufacturing to help close a national gap in aerospace and defense manufacturing capabilities. What's really unique about this industry cluster is that there's a lot of security involved with them, and so it's really critical that we do the manufacturing and development here in the U.S. And that's something that's a little bit different from what we see in other industry clusters. And that's where there's a huge opportunity for us to fill, particularly given our proximity to Fort Bliss and the White Sands Missile Range. As I mentioned before, the coalition is led by El Paso Makes. It's a partnership of UTEP's Aerospace Center and Keck Center, the 3D Printing Center, as well as the El Paso Chamber. The application itself will be submitted by UTEP's Aerospace Center, and they will be the lead entity responsible for grant management if awarded. Next slide, please. So the proposal does, as I mentioned before, one of the key things here is that we build on our regional assets and that we leverage them to our benefit to grow out this industry cluster. This proposal heavily does that by leveraging Fort Bliss and White Sands Missile Range, both incredible economic drivers for our region. They also provide the largest contiguous tract of restricted airspace in the U.S., continental U.S., used for training and testing. So there's a natural fit here to begin to incorporate our local businesses and attract new businesses to support those activities right next door. The proposal additionally builds on existing development, manufacturing, and testing aerospace facilities in both southern New Mexico and West Texas at Spaceport America, and I apologize, there's a typo here, and Blue Origin near Van Horn. So that's a huge opportunity that we have. Both are privately owned facilities, but it's a great opportunity to build up partnerships with those industries. And finally, not on this slide, but as we'll see in the next few slides, is that the proposal additionally leverages the El Paso International Airport, another key economic driver for our region. It's part of our 25 by 2025 visionary initiatives to really focus on the airport as a regional economic driver. And this proposal, if successful, will hugely do that. Next slide, please. So what I want to highlight is that this is not a new partnership. The proposal and the city's participation as a regional coalition member really does build and grow existing partnerships with El Paso Makes, as well as leverage successes of El Paso Makes. Importantly, prior to the EDA's announcement of the Buildback Better Challenge, the city and El Paso Makes have been working together to conceptualize a 250-acre advanced manufacturing campus that would be located at the El Paso International Airport. The intent of the campus is really to create an ecosystem for startups and establish small companies to grow and create quality jobs, while also becoming future airport tenants, further catalyzing airport growth, which in turn is good for the city as a whole and for the region. The announcement of the challenge came at a perfect time. We didn't know that the challenge would come when we were working on this conceptual plan, but with the challenge, it was a natural fit to translate our plans into a proposal and really take advantage of this opportunity to turn that plan into a reality. Next slide, please. So in addition to our work in terms of developing an advanced manufacturing campus, there's been a lot of other recent successes with El Paso Makes and with the city as a partner. Congresswoman Escobar recently secured $964,000 through the federal appropriations process for an El Paso Makes and National Center for Defense Manufacturing and Machining initiative to assist local manufacturing businesses in accessing defense contracts. So that's a really big deal. We have a lot of strong local manufacturers that are smaller, and they need help to grow and be able to access the defense contracts that would bring huge growth to them. It's part of a retention strategy that is really critical for our community, and that appropriation process secured a significant amount of dollars for that. This proposal builds on that. In addition, most recently on September 30th, UTEP's Aerospace Center, in partnership with the Keck Center, El Paso Chamber, and the city, was awarded $1.5 million through the EDA to further assist in this effort through the creation of the Aerospace and Defense Supply Chain Innovation Network. Another good opportunity and another example of how we're just building on the successes that we've been pulling together. And then finally, we recently announced that the City Chamber and General Motors and El Paso Electric have partnered to accelerate the transition to electric vehicles. This is another great opportunity to build out advanced manufacturing and build on that campus that's focused on aerospace and defense manufacturing, taking it to the next level and focusing on advanced in general. Next slide, please. So as I said, this was a natural fit for us. The Build Back Better Challenge came at a really good time. It has been a heavy focus of the city and city council to look at the airport as a current and future economic driver for the city. We've been focusing on non-aeronautical revenue development. And so what we did as a first step in that process was look at a land development master plan and really identify key areas of opportunity at the airport. One of those areas of opportunity is an advanced manufacturing district and campus. We've been looking at various development finance tools to facilitate us doing that. You have on your agenda today the first reading of TERS 14, which would adopt the final project and finance plan that really does facilitate the infrastructure development needs to make all of these other projects a possibility at the airport. We've also been working with Fort Bliss very closely as our largest employer and next door neighbor. It's critical that we work with them at the airport. And then finally, we've been focusing on grant opportunities. Infrastructure network expansion is one of them, looking at where we can submit for grant opportunities to supplement the financing that we intend to secure through the tax increment reinvestment zone number 14. And then looking at how we can develop and retain future tenants using grant opportunities such as the Build Back Better Challenge. So again, what's really interesting here about the city's role in this proposal is that the advanced manufacturing district would allow us to really build out an innovation center, as well as help smaller manufacturers move to become larger manufacturers. And that creates an ecosystem to not only develop our existing businesses and new businesses, but also to retain them as future customers for the airport, just further catalyzing the development of that economic driver for our region. Next slide, please. So the city's role in the coalition is again to be the lead on master planning and building out the advanced manufacturing district that would be the center for a series of projects that would stretch from El Paso County out to Culberson County, all intended to grow the aerospace and defense manufacturing industry cluster. In the city's role, there are two specific projects that are called out in the proposal. So the first is that we develop a small business innovation center. We've already identified cargo number 4, so an existing cargo facility about 50,000 square feet to use as this opportunity. It's intended to create a space for innovative work and startups. It allows startup companies a collaborative workspace, so it brings them together, allows them to share their ideas and work with one another, undertake joint ventures. It does focus on aerospace engineering and advanced manufacturing. And then as a benefit, the leasing structure will be a nonprofit, so partial abatement opportunities will be determined based on the company's needs. And again, this is the long-term strategy of really building new customers and then retaining them into the future. Next slide, please. So this just shows an outline, a little bit more information of what that innovation center would look like. There's common use conference rooms and 2,000 square feet of maker spaces, which is a huge thing. It's expensive for a startup to begin with the equipment needed to do this, and so this area would provide that equipment for their shared use. Next slide, please. Phase 2, so the second project identified in the proposal is the build out of the larger campus. So it's 200 to 250 acre campus, master plan to co-locate aerospace, defense, and advanced manufacturing. There is the potential to minimize, as I said before, business expense through shared infrastructure, and manufacturers can choose to locate their operations in shared facilities or in single operator designed to suit facilities. So this is just, again, this is the conceptual that we've been working on for the last many, many months. And Build Back Better came at the perfect time to turn the conceptual into reality. Next slide, please. So the city's role specifically in the letter of support that council may authorize today, it identifies the city as the lead in master planning and developing the El Paso Makes Advanced Manufacturing District at the airport. Once again, a 250-acre area dedicated to co-locate aerospace and defense manufacturing activities, including 50,000 square feet of existing cargo facility. If we're successful in phase 1, then as we're preparing to submit for phase 2, we would build these 2 projects out more, including project budgets for each. And that's when we would identify the local match, which can include cash and in-kind services. Next slide, please. So in terms of next steps, today we're here to obtain council's direction regarding the city's participation and outlined role in this particular coalition led by UTEP's Aerospace Center. Next slide, please. I think we've been through all of these things, so I won't go through them in detail. There's huge benefit, though, to participating in this project. I think that some of the things that I'll just emphasize is it really does increase economic resiliency. Aerospace and defense manufacturing has historically been a difficult industry cluster to grow. By leveraging federal dollars and a substantial amount of federal dollars, we'll be able to grow that cluster more significantly, which only encourages economic diversity by building out a new cluster not currently available to our residents and to our region. It builds on where we've focused a lot of our attention on life sciences. The two have a lot in common in terms of supply chain requirements as well as job and experience requirements. So I think the two are symbiotic and really do support one another. Next slide, please. And again, just some more considerations to think about. This application really does provide for regional impact. Looking at what's happening in southern New Mexico, all the way out to West Texas with El Paso centered directly in the middle is a huge benefit. And our adjacent location to Fort Bliss is also a huge benefit and something that this proposal certainly builds on. Next slide, please. So just as a reminder, the resolution today, this is what it authorizes the city to do. And with that, I'm happy to move into item 42 presentation, unless there are questions.
Mayor Pro Tem?
No, I just think it would be great to see the next presentation before we have any questions.
Okay. So item 42, next slide, please. Item 42 is structured very similar to the last one, so we'll skip the first few slides, but we did receive an invitation to participate in a regional coalition led by the Medical Center of America's Foundation. This one focuses on building out the biomedtech industry cluster and builds on what we've done historically and what we will continue to do over the next 9 years or so with the MCA to build out a really strong life sciences industry cluster. So again, similar to the last resolution, this item asks council to authorize the city's participation in the coalition and authorizes the mayor to sign a letter of support for the application, as well as identifies the city's role in this particular proposal. Next slide, please. So I'm going to skip because the next few slides just give context about the Build Back Better. Next slide. And next slide. Next slide. And next one. Okay, so we've been fortunate to have conversations with the Medical Center of Americas about a proposal that they're putting together. We received the proposal last week and were able to get it on council's agenda in time for its consideration prior to that October 19th deadline. So the vision of this particular proposal is again to grow the biomedtech cluster while seeking linkages and spillover effects to other regional clusters. And as I mentioned in the previous presentation, biomedtech or life sciences and aerospace, defense manufacturing have a number of supply chain commonalities, as well as job and experience and skill commonalities. So really the two build on one another, and we would be very lucky to receive funding for either. Again, this coalition, it's made up of a number of different entities, but led by the Medical Center of America's Foundation. Next slide, please. So the proposal identifies 5 programmatic initiatives. These initiatives will be built out further in the planning phase, phase 2, if successful in receiving funding through phase 1. The first is data analysis and evaluation, so really understanding where we currently stand with the biomedtech industry cluster and where our gaps are. The second is tech innovation and commercialization. So this speaks to the entrepreneurship component of the Buildback Better Regional Challenge and really focuses on taking those startups and helping them develop and commercialize their ideas for the future. The third focuses on funding and access to capital. Of course, it's expensive to take startups and move them forward into small scale and then larger scale operations. And so funding and access to capital is a critical component of doing that. The fourth looks at manufacturing for the future. So once we have those ideas, we've taken them through commercialization, then actually manufacturing so that they can be provided to the supplier or to the buyers. And then finally, equitable supply chain development. So just looking at how we build out the supply chain and really focus on a local emphasis on that supply chain to support the biomedtech industry cluster. Next slide, please. So the city's role as a coalition member here would be to assist in building the regional manufacturing capacity. So we do, as you saw previously, we do have an opportunity at the airport to really develop an advanced manufacturing district. This proposal builds on that idea. And then the second, provide for supportive economic development efforts by providing data and connections for industry partners and other coalition members. So just providing that support role and securing the data needed to carry out the 5 programmatic initiatives. Similar to the last presentation, if successful in getting through phase 1, then in phase 2, prior to phase 2 submission, these 2 roles will be built out in greater detail. The program budgets for those 5 initiatives identified on the previous slide will be built out, and we'll return to council with a greater description of what will be happening and what the city's local match will be, which again can be cash and in-kind services. Next slide, please. So finally, similar to the last presentation, the next steps is to obtain council's permission to provide a letter of support and participate as a regional coalition member in this application. Next slide, please. And this is a summary of what the resolution is authorizing. With that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Pardon me? Go ahead, Representative Nello. You're not lighting up here, so.
Oh, I was just going to say, can we take public comment?
We do have public comments, so we'll go to that. Thank you.
Yes, Mayor. The first person that signed up to speak on item 41 is Ms. Susana Bird. She will be followed by Beto Payares. Good morning, Representative Bird. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Good morning.
I'm so glad to be with you here this morning. My name is Susie Bird. I work on behalf of the El Paso Makes Partnership, coordinating the activities of the El Paso Chamber, UTEP's Aerospace Center, and the WM Keck Center for 3D Innovation, who are very focused on developing jobs and business opportunity in aerospace and defense manufacturing. And we have been a partner with you for the last year. You guys have been with us on several tours to go visit our local manufacturers. You've been with us as we've toured industry leaders through our the Keck Center facilities, through the Aerospace Center facilities, And so I want to just today take a moment to appreciate you. City staff has been working with us very closely on the aerospace, the advanced manufacturing district located at the airport. I only want to add, and I can answer any questions if you have any about the particulars of the proposal that we've put forward, but what this does, this application and this effort, and irrespective of whether this is funded, we will continue this work. Is it leverages the national preeminence of two centers that we all should be incredibly proud of. You have the Aerospace Center and the WMKEC Center for 3D Innovation, who combined are doing some very significant things, not only very intentional applied research, but also they're doing what very few universities in this country are doing, which is providing a very diverse workforce for the aerospace and defense industries. We should be very proud of that. And one of the things that we want to do is use that national preeminence to really capture more business opportunity here in our community. Combined with that, you have the El Paso Chamber, whose business expertise, their acumen, their connections within the community, we think will really help enliven our economy and do two things that I know have been a priority for this council, for this community, for our mayor for these last decades, which is to increase wages in our community and find more ways to create those occupations, particularly in STEM, that are a draw to talent from all over the country, and also are an opportunity for our students that are currently having to leave our community because those occupations don't exist here, to stay here if they so choose. So with that, I'm open. I'm glad to answer any questions. Want to thank you so much for all of your work on behalf of our community, and in particular for this partnership. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Beto Payares. He will be followed by Ms. Emma Schwartz and Patrick Landry. Good morning, Mr. Payares. You have 3 minutes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Mayor, district representatives, City of El Paso staff, citizens both present and online. My name is Beto Payares. I'm a citizen of El Paso. And for the past 15 years, I've been working in venture capital, backing over 160 different companies throughout the US, ranging from aerospace to medical devices to cybersecurity and other areas. I also hold the endowed chair in entrepreneurship at New Mexico State University, where I teach students to build companies. I'm here as a private citizen, first of all, to thank you for taking on the challenge to evaluate very worthwhile proposals, both from UTEP, where I hold 2 graduate degrees, and from the MCA, that has for years worked in an area to develop a cluster that is important to any community. The only thing I ask is that as a governing body and a body of public servants, that you look at the various projects with care so that we can find ways to collaborate among them, even beyond this award. I think it is great that a community like ours has the intellect and the prowess to be able to put forth 2 very worthwhile projects. And I hope that you will consider endorsing them both. I'm happy to answer any questions.
The next speaker is Ms. Emma Schwartz. She will be followed by Patrick Landry. Good morning, Ms. Schwartz. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Mayor, Council, City staff. I've been up here many times reporting to you over the last 9 years on the Medical Center of the Americas impact agreement that we've had with the city. We're really excited about this new opportunity that we have because it's really about scaling work that we have been doing for many, many years. Believe it or not, the MCA is now 15 years old. And so we have a long history of investing in the life sciences industry here, both from a campus perspective as well as programmatically. We are really excited that healthcare is now the largest private industry in El Paso. We are also really excited that the medical device manufacturing industry has already 40,000 people working throughout our region in medical devices, with 45 manufacturers and over 52 suppliers to this industry. This industry was so crucial during COVID also. When we saw the supply chains disrupted in China, our manufacturers in El Paso and Juarez were able to scale up and pivot to providing life-saving medical equipment and supplies to the world. So this is such a crucial industry for us to be focusing on today. We're excited that we have received over the past 10 years about $3.2 million from the EDA in 6 different grants, both to support our infrastructure, developing the campus and the Cardwell Collaborative, as well as our many programs that are reflected in the grant application that we have before us today with the EDA. So we want to grow innovation and commercialization. That's where we bring high-level jobs, where we're innovating and developing products, and also developing suppliers that will support the manufacturing. We want to grow our manufacturing sector. Advanced manufacturing is so important to our region. When we go into the medical device manufacturing plants here in El Paso and in Juarez, we see Industry 4.0 starting, growing, and taking off. We see automation, visualization, AI. We want to see that grow in our community. So we think this grant application is a wonderful way to bring both innovation, manufacturing, supplier development, and also a center of excellence in clinical research. We have a broad coalition of supporters who are participating in this program, from different departments at UTEP to Texas Tech, to the school districts in the rural communities, to Doña Ana and Arrowhead. We have partners with Workforce Solutions Borderplex, with Borderplex Alliance, with Fab Lab El Paso, with Project Vida. Funding is another important component of this, both venture funding and traditional funding. So we're really excited about this opportunity. What we're proposing is nothing new. It's taking existing programs that we have done well, executed well on, and scaling these to make sure that they're accessible throughout our community. So we're really excited to be here today. We hope that you will support this application and that we will see true growth in the life sciences sector here in our region. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
The next speaker is Mr. Patrick Landry.
I don't see him here. Is he online?
Let me see if I can identify. I don't see his phone number in the queue either, Mayor.
Okay. Well, thank you.
That concludes public comment on these 2 items.
Thank you. Any council members have any questions? Or go ahead. Do we have a motion?
No, I have a question, Mayor.
Okay, I didn't see where you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you are. Representative Salcido.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a question for the staff. Just wanted to gather and know a little bit about this grant. So who can apply for this grant?
So it can be a variety of different types of entities that can apply, but what has to be present is that it has to be, there has to be a regional coalition identified, meaning that it's more than just one entity putting forward the proposal. Additionally, it's important to have industry support, and then also to identify a lead applicant. And the purpose, again, is really to have a regional impact by growing a new industry cluster or scaling an existing industry cluster. So when you think about the regional coalition members you would want to have, you would want them to, to really, I guess, represent the region as a whole.
Okay, perfect. And I know that I actually read on your slides that the deadline is October the 19th. If anybody comes before that time and submits another application before the city, I mean, how can they still be part of this if they wanted to, if they chose to?
Unfortunately, that's the hard part. This is the last council meeting ahead of time, so it would be difficult to secure council support without holding a special meeting. But we've been working pretty closely with the region as a whole and with the county in particular. And these are the 2 applications that have come to us. They've, although one of the proposals wasn't submitted until recently. We have known about the ideas over the last month or so. So I think that we're in a good place with these two proposals.
Okay. I think that both initiatives are great for the community, so I'm in support of both. And I guess one last question is, will they be working together or they're two separate?
So they are two separate proposals. I think what's really unique about each of the proposals, though, is that they are industry clusters that support one another. So there are spillover effects. If one is successful while the other one is not, I think that you'll see the opportunity to work together in the future and really highlight those spillover effects, whether it's in terms of supply chain spillover or as I said before, both industry clusters require similar experience and skill requirements. So I think that in the end, you'll have spillover effects with the two.
Okay, thank you so much, Elizabeth.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. I want to thank staff for all the hard work. I want to thank both applicant teams for this. And it's a great opportunity for our community. Thanks mostly to the opportunity from the new administration on the federal level. And so I think that having an opportunity to support two thought out projects, I think is a positive one. I just want to be clear. So the city would be partners with both projects as it's currently structured.
Yes, and Elizabeth, would you like to elaborate on that?
Sure, that's correct. So we would be a coalition member in each application. So the two applications are separate, but we are committing to both. In the event that one is successful, we intend to fully carry out our commitment as a regional coalition member. And
the participation and collaboration that the city has had has been with both groups now for months.
Yeah, so I mean, I think with the MCA, you see we already have a very strong partnership and relationship, and that's really solidified through our 380 agreement with them that Emma spoke about a little bit earlier. And in addition, we did a lot of work in scaling up the PPE supply here in El Paso, so very strong partnership with the MCA. And then with El Paso Makes through the UTEP Aerospace Center and Keck Center, as well as the Chamber, we've had a lot of recent successes in terms of grant funding. We've also been working together very closely to conceptualize that advanced manufacturing district and turn it into a reality.
And Mayor Pro Tem, I guess one more thing in terms of the city's participation, you know, both of these projects fall within key target industry clusters where we have competitive advantages in the region. And so certainly it fits within the regional strategic economic development plan, and the city's obviously involved in all of our target industry clusters to advance the community's interests in each of those areas.
All right, well, thank you again, and thank you for everybody taking the time today to come and be part of the public comment here, and for both teams for all the hard work that y'all have been doing, ultimately to make our community a more competitive and better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, with that, I think what's really important that before, you know, in the last couple of days, I know we had briefings with City Manager, Colonel Weston, and we talked about, you know, supporting the programs and to look at the credibility and the value of both programs was really important, and to come up with a recommendation and make sure we researched it to make sure it didn't impact the city and didn't impact any program, and make sure that every program could stand on its own. And I think that was the key to being able to bring back the recommendation that we could support both and would not impact either one because it can stand on their own and be able to win either way. So that was very important, and I commend the city and their team for looking at that and being able to do that. So thank you again, City Manager and his team. And with that, do we have a motion?
There was a motion made by Representative Anello, seconded by Representative Salcido to approve item number 41. Would you like to include item 42, Representative Anello? Is that okay with you, Representative Salcido?
Yes.
Thank you. So there is a motion and a second to approve items 41 and 42. On that motion, call for the vote.
So this is to support both projects at this time?
Yes.
Okay.
Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. End the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. Mayor, may we go to call to the public? Thank you. The El Paso City Council is a local government body charged with serving all of the citizens of this city, and the meetings must be focused on the meeting at charge. The city council meetings are public meetings under the Texas Open Meetings Act. Public comment is an accommodation and not a requirement of city council. All persons in attendance are expected to display civility and decorum that is respectful to other persons without the use of insulting, profane, threatening, or abusive language. Public comment will not be used for personal attacks against a person or group's character or integrity, which are not pertinent to city business, nor may any member of the public use this forum for political statements or campaigning. Please note that during call to the public, the city council may not deliberate or decide any subject that is not on the agenda. However, council may propose that a topic commented on be posted on a future agenda. This afternoon, we have 8 members of the public that signed up to speak. The first person is Mr. Jose Gaston Barriga.
I don't see him in chambers.
I don't see him in chambers either. The next person would be Miss Wally Sheck,
Ms. Scheck?
followed by Valerie Hubbard. She will be followed by Miss Lisa Turner. Good morning, Miss Sheck. Good afternoon, Miss Sheck. You have 3 minutes, ma'am.
Good afternoon. God bless America, and I'm asking you all to help save America. This is a special gift to the City Hall. It has the lighthouse in front, a special basket. Let El Paso be the lighthouse for all cities, and use this basket at every agenda where people can actually put letters in there for the mayor and for your district representative. It takes a lot of ideas to make one work. And this, Mr. Mayor, is a little angel for your desk. And let's unite the city like never before. And 2 weeks from now at the agenda, I have the biggest surprise, and it's gonna make money for the city. So don't worry about your 3 minutes, okay? I am old, and I don't have too many more agendas, so I'm collecting ahead of time. Mr. Mayor, may I come and give this to you in person? I keep my mask on it.
If you don't mind just leaving it back there, it'd be great, Ms. Scheck.
Okay.
We'll put it right there.
Yeah, make sure you get it, okay?
Yes, I'll make sure Ms. Prine doesn't keep it.
Yeah. God bless you all, every one of you. My love and prayers are with you every day.
Thank you. God bless you, Ms. Scheck.
Thank you, Ms. Sheck. The next person is Ms. Valerie Hubbard. She will be followed by Ms. Lisa Turner.
My purse is falling off.
Good afternoon, Ms. Hubbard. You'll have 3 minutes, ma'am.
All right, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Valerie Hubbard, and I'm Deputy Director of El Paso Normal. I'm a constituent of Councilwoman Hernandez and Mayor Leeser. It has been brought to my attention that the El Paso Police Department has had a budget increase of $30 million over the past 5 years. Now the police department is requesting another $360,000 for the testing of small amounts of cannabis. It would be important to we as citizens of El Paso to know how many rape kits do we have backlogged that remain untested? How many cold case homicides does the department have that still need DNA testing? In 2020, cite and release was passed by this body politic. Cite and release is a harm reduction strategy. If anything, the continued need to arrest and prosecute users of small amounts of drugs should be a public health issue and a harm reduction strategy. So what could be the reason for this huge amount of taxpayer dollars requested by the department for testing of small amounts of cannabis? Is it because the new district attorney does not want to continue to prosecute small drug amounts? New Mexico is legalizing cannabis in 2022. Is this seen as a moneymaker for the police state? The El Paso Police Department will once again be able to oppress, arrest, test, and send to prosecute El Pasoans with small amounts of cannabis. The obsessive need for a police department to continue to do this is addictive behavior that the department needs to stop. I'm not sure this money couldn't be put towards a rehab for that. I leave you with this last thought. It is well known throughout the country that nothing racks up more overtime for law enforcement officers than be able to arrest and send to prosecute small-time cannabis users. Let's not keep ruining lives for dollars. The drug war is a failure. I ask the council to please not vote for this draconian request. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Hubbard.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ms. Lisa Turner. Ms. Turner's topic is Governor Abbott's executive order. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Mayor
Good
Council.
afternoon, Ms. Turner again.
I have seen a whole lot of stupid since this COVID-19 started, and the governor's order the other day is about, ranks right up there, number one. I don't understand how these things are even constitutional under the Texas Constitution, considering that you are a home rule city. You are tasked with certain responsibilities, and they've been ripped away from you. He starts to wonder who is in charge of my city, my elected mayor and council, or that idiot in Austin who's our governor. And now he's saying that a private company cannot mandate that their employees or anybody coming into their business must be vaccinated. That's very authoritarian. That's being a dictator. I mean, I'm thinking interstate commerce for those who have people moving back and forth between the states. It's just probably, I doubt, even legal, considering that there are federal laws that he's trying to undo through an executive order. I don't understand this. It's not for, we used to have governors who cared about the safety of the citizens of this state. This governor no longer does. I don't know who he's trying to make himself look good to, but here's the deal. People don't get vaccinated, our economy, business will not recover. That's plain and simple. People will not be going back to work until they feel it's safe to go back to work. Women will not be able to go back to work because they're not going to be able to find care for their children. That's going to keep them out. There's nothing wrong with getting the vaccination. Granted, it's a mandate, but smallpox, polio, measles, you name it. We get flu shots every year, those of us smart enough to get it, so we don't have to deal with it. Seat belts, that's a mandate. No shoes, no shirt, no service, that's a mandate. Saying that, you know, we have to be wearing our clothes in public, that's a mandate. get smart. Get the vaccination.
Thank you, Ms.
We
Turner.
can get the economy rolling, but not until then.
Thank you, Ms. Turner.
The next speaker will be Ms. Elvira Ortega. Her topic is Senior Citizen Centers. She's accompanied by Ms. Dora Villanueva, Martha Roybali, and Cristina Alarcon. Good afternoon, Ms. Ortega. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, City Council.
Good afternoon.
My name is Elvira Ortega, and I am an active member of San Juan Senior Center, and we are here representing all the senior centers. With me, like she said, is Dora Villanueva.
Good afternoon.
Marta Robaldi and Cristina Alarcon, and we have another member that could not make it. First of all, opening the senior centers was a group effort, okay? And we are here to cordially invite you to a dance we had organized ahead of time. And we would like for you to go so you can see that our senior centers were needed. And we need to go to these senior centers to do our socializing, our exercising, and exercise, okay? And these things are a major part of our lives. We are eager to start living again because for 1 year and 8 months, all we did was sit at home. But like I said, we are eager to start living again. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Ms. Sabrina Soto. Ms. Soto, if you press *6, you can unmute your telephone. Sabrina Soto, *6, please. Ms. Soto's topic is El Paso Police Department request to increase funding budget to test the THC percentages in cannabis. Good afternoon, ma'am. You have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, City Council. $72,000 was a lot of money to begin with. Now the police department is asking for the budget to be raised to $360,000. Money that doesn't need to be wasted on arresting and prosecuting us. Why continue to give us criminal records for the way that we choose to medicate ourselves with a plant that is medicine? City Council, I ask you again to take under consideration the cannabis community that is right here in El Paso. Please hear us. We are fighting every day for cannabis rights and reform. In 1915, the city of El Paso outlawed cannabis. That is over 100 years of arrests. It started here and it should end here. Let's get away from the cannabis prohibition era. Instead, let's get on the right side of history. We all have cannabinoid receptors in our bodies. It is 2021. When is everyone going to acknowledge all the research showing the benefits of using cannabis? Let me remind you that there are states surrounding Texas, whether they be medicinal or recreational, that are thriving off of this plant. They are moving forward, and El Paso should not be moving backwards. We are going to be wasting and misusing millions of tax dollars. We depend on you, our city council representatives, to make the right choices for the community of El Paso. If this funding is approved, it is only going to hurt us. I strongly suggest that you deny this increased funding request. Thank you again, City Council. Have a good day.
Thank you. The next speaker is Mr. Michael Castro. Mr. Castro, *6, please. Mr. Castro's topic is cannabis decriminalization. Good afternoon, Mr. Castro. You have 3 minutes.
Hi, good afternoon, City Council. So again, real quick, Sabrina, you did an awesome job. Just to mention real quick, City Council, I just want to touch again on the $360,000 that's being requested by the El Paso Police Department. And if the El Paso Police Department is listening, which I hope they are, we have to really consider what you're asking for. We understand you have to follow law, and it is your job, but at the same time, we do have to look at the rest of Texas and how progressive they are. Places like San Marcos, Texas, Austin, Houston, moving forward, with decriminalizing certain laws or just doing things that are pushing the progression forward, right? We're not going backwards. And again, to the El Paso Police Department, to the City Council, we just really have to realize what we're doing when we arrest anybody or we prosecute anybody for misdemeanor amounts of cannabis or, you know, a cartridge or an edible, right? New Mexico is about to be recreational. We're going to keep saying this over and over again because it is what's happening, right? This is not going away. Recreational sales will start in April. So we just have to realize what we're doing as a city and who we're actually protecting, who we're actually helping, or who we're actually hurting, which is the citizens. So again, thank you, City Council.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Mr. Colt DeMorris. Mr. DeMorris's topic is marijuana reform. Good afternoon, sir. You'll have 3 minutes.
Good afternoon, Council.
Good afternoon.
Mayor. First PD wanted $72,000. Now they're asking for $360,000. When the initial $72,000 came up, Michael had mentioned something about, you know, it's probably going to cost more. And I kind of brushed it off thinking in terms of a contract and adding additions to said contract. Now I'm beginning to wonder if that's the case. $72,000 was the starting point. Now they want more. How asinine is it to arrest somebody for a plant, then take this said evidence and send it off to a lab for testing, in which this said lab is in a state where the substance you just sent them for testing is legal to possess by adults 21 and over and will be able to be purchased by the same adults in just a few short months. To continue arresting cannabis users will be continue arresting people and patients like myself. I am a hardworking, productive member of society. Within the past year, there were weeks where I was putting in 96 hours a week at 2 full-time jobs, traveling for one and running El Paso Normal, where I try to make my community better for current and future generations. I consume for mental and physical ailments. I work, I spend time with my family, friends, and dog. I smoke a lot of pot, and I smoke a lot. Or I smoke pot and I smoke a lot. I don't hurt anybody. Stop arresting me and people and patients like me. Thank you.
The final speaker is Mr. Jose Gaston Barriga. Mr. Barriga's topic is body-worn cameras and his personal perspective and experience. Good afternoon, sir. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, good afternoon. I have been since I got out of therapy from the VA from the last 3 years. Most of you saw me how difficult it was hard for me to talk. I've been in the most craziest cities that you have no idea what I have seen or how I have exposed myself into danger, but nothing has happened to me. I had never encountered the stuff that I have gone through, that I have experienced here. But I'm gonna tell you, last year, about June, I was here with my brother, and we went to Walmart, and I had side effects, and that was I think in August, and I needed, it was about 7 o'clock at night, and they had a yogurt place inside the Walmart down there at the new Paso del Norte, and you see my cart. If I put a basket, everybody tends to confuse this thing as a homeless car, and that is the reason that I'm picky about it. So when they see this, they assume this is a homeless car. Okay, so I get profile. So this is an Oriental guy that owns the place. So, you know, he didn't like me being there, so he called a police officer. By then, there was a SWAT agent. You know, he had a beer, and he basically told me, this is what you're gonna do. I couldn't say anything, you know, but I had side effects. He said, do what I say. So by then, I didn't know how to react. Then, little by little, back in November, I started encountering the same things. I go to Walmart or Sam's, and you got police officers there. And you got somebody from Walmart or Sam's that's saying, hey, this person's suspicious because he's grabbing stuff and it seems like he's stealing. I'm not doing anything wrong, but the moment that you tell a police officer, hey, this person may be stealing, the police officer has the mentality that this person is doing something bad. So Guess what I started doing? I started using a GoPro. And I started recording. To the point that I started telling an officer, I say, at the end, I say, this is me. I'm not doing any harm. Now, I wear a body camera. How hard is for you to use those amount of money that you're saying about for drugs when you have a grant available right now? I'm about to give this to you.
Thank you, Mr. Barriga.
We'll have 5 seconds.
Thank you, sir.
Pardon
It's
me,
a
sir.
grant.
Can you please wrap it up, please?
Yes. The grant came up in September. This is the governor, and it's the timeline. It is had to be submitted and certified application by November by 5 p.m. 25% is what the matching.
Thank you.
So I'll leave it here. And
Thank you, sir.
you cannot waste this opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mayor. That concludes call to the public this afternoon.
Thank you.
We return to page 15 to item number 43. This is discussion and action on a resolution that the city manager be authorized to sign the First Amendment to the on-call agreements for professional services between the city of El Paso and number 1, Clarion Associates, Inc., number 2, the Image Network, Inc., DBA Dover, Cole, and the correct spelling is Kohl, and Partners, for an amended value of $300,000. To correct the amount on the agenda, it's $300,000. And to number 3, Stantec Consulting Services, Inc.
Move to approve.
There's a motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Schwartzbein, seconded by Representative Lizarraga to approve. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. And the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. Representative Anello not present. The next item is number 44, and this is discussion and action on a resolution authorizing the city manager or designee to effectuate the purchase and closing of the property commonly known as 501 Mills Avenue.
Second.
You have a presentation on this?
Yes, we have a presentation. Sam Rodriguez, City Engineer, if IT can bring that up, please. Mayor and Council, this item is for the approval of a contract of sale for the purchase of 501 Mill Street. Next slide, please. When the city acquired the front side of the building, where we have City 1, part of that agreement included the first right of refusal if at any one time El Paso Times sold the backside of the building. And so in discussions with the building owner since April through June, we've been in discussions about the opportunity to buy the backside of this property. The public purpose for this purchase is obviously strategic and the long-term consolidation of city services, as well as for us to meet strategic safety and secure type of objectives for our operation. The funding source for this acquisition is capital restricted funds, which in essence come from proceeds from the sale of capital assets and real estate transactions. Next slide. The property description, the purchase price is $3.6 million based on the appraisal that was received and procured by the city as fair market value. The contract includes earnest money of $50,000. The closure is anticipated to happen within the next 90 days. And the other discussion a point that we had with the seller was the printing press, which is scheduled to be removed by the seller. Part of this agreement will also terminate the lease that we currently have with the property owner for the breezeway at $72,000 a year. Next slide. The overview, it is 2.25 acres of land. It was constructed in 1991. It does have a zoning of C5. And as I stated, it's $3.6 million. Next slide. Some photos of the interior. Several council members did take advantage of the tour that was offered to see the inside of the facility as well. Next slide. Be happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, we have Representative Molinard.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question on the contract itself. I understand the seller is responsible for moving the printing press. However, is there any timeline given on that?
Yes, part of that removal is within within that closure. They need to make arrangements for that removal prior to closing.
And any type of possible, that printing press is huge, any type of residual damage that occurs to the property, are they still going to be responsible for that as well?
Yes, Representative Molinar.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Rodriguez, appreciate it.
Thank you, and I think, and I'm not sure, that one of the things that it's important to take into consideration as we look at this, we do pay rent on the foyer downstairs in the common area, so that would we would no longer have to do that. So it would be really a savings when you put it all together, and that makes a huge difference when what do we, Mr. Rodriguez, what are we paying yearly on that common area?
$72,000 a year, Mayor.
So if you multiply that times a normal mortgage, it's quite a bit of money. It probably, for a 30-year mortgage, you're looking at for 10 years is $720 and then 1.4, so you're taking half of it out really quick. So that makes a lot of sense, and we have a property that has a increased value moving forward. And maybe, Colonel Weston, maybe we can bring economic development back and put them back there. It'd be a big savings.
Well, we'll certainly take a look at what we can do with that space from a staffing standpoint.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, no, thank you. You know, in terms of uses, we just had 2 presentations about looking at having innovative spaces for innovation and startups. One is a hangar at the airport, and it seems like a warehouse that used to hold newspaper printing materials. Would probably be a similar style building. My question relates towards the appraised value for it. I know that some people think that why we're paying so much or what is there. Can you help walk through, for the benefit of the public, how we came across this, the price for this building?
Yes, certainly. First of all, we hire a certified appraiser through the state of Texas, and they have a process that is industry-based or industry standard to develop the appraisal based on comparable type of property in and around the city, as well as within downtown proper, looking at the existing use and the highest and best use, and that's how they're able to determine the fair market value for us to establish the contract price. Mayor Pro Tem.
I know that we have an on-call contract, I believe, with CBRE. Were they involved in this project?
Mayor Pro Tem, they were not involved in this project. This project started with the negotiations of the breezeway, and are approaching the property owner for us to acquire that breezeway, because the lease agreement for the breezeway that the mayor was referencing was due to come up towards the end of this year. And that's how the negotiations started to come back and do the full purchase of the property. We work with our legal team and our real estate division to establish the contract of sale that's before you today. CBRE was not involved in this process.
Who do we have currently in our real estate division? Because I know that we had, what was her name?
She's gone.
She's gone. I want to say it's Lisa or Laura.
Yeah, Lisa Gallo was our real estate manager.
So
right now we have a very talented Greenbelt. Mary Lou Espinosa is leading our real estate division in conjunction with Omar De La Rosa at the city attorney's office. Been working a lot of processes, procedures. We currently have a lease management system now in place in conjunction with the comptroller's office. So it's been a very division that's been revamped to where we have really good processes and procedures, and mainly established for this acquisition through the state law and the procurement and the transaction that's established by state law.
And do you have any information about market comps in terms of other buildings similar and other sales recently within the downtown area?
I can send you a copy of the appraisal. It's public information, but I don't have that in front of me, Mayor Pro Tem. And that's how the appraiser was able to establish the fair market value was based on comps, specifically in the downtown area, and looking at some of the other existing transactions or values that have been established thereabouts.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that some people have some questions about, I guess, how that number was decided upon there. I do agree with the mayor, and the mayor's supportive of this in that, you know, the $72,000 a year is not an insignificant number, and especially when you're looking at year over year, having that commitment for, bless you, a breezeway doesn't seem to be the best of utilization of resources of taxpayers' money.
Yeah, we're happy to send that to you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you for that, Mayor Pro Tem. Representative Anello?
Thank you. Mr. Rodriguez, on slide, I think it's your second slide, first slide, you say that the funding source comes from proceeds from the sales of capital assets. Can you tell us what those assets are?
Certainly. We currently have a contract of sale in place for property in the Northwest that's scheduled to close before this one. Those funds are not eligible to use for operations. They can only be used for capital acquisitions, such as the one that's before you today.
And what
so it's
go ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, so it's anticipated that property in the Northwest is going to close before this transaction is completed.
And what is the property in the Northwest?
This is the property that we have under contract right now for the Great Wolf Lodge, the old property there that was bought there on Northern Pass, or I believe it's Northern Pass, Paso Norte, I'm sorry, Paso Norte and I-10.
Okay, thank you.
Now, the last question I have is, so we're buying the facility, and I know that we know it's going to take, environmentally, we need to do testing because they use ink and other materials. Will we do phase 1, phase 2? Is that required? And then number 2, we're buying a shell, just like you buy a church, and then you got to put the pews in it. So we're buying a shell, and we need to make sure that we convert it into what will be usable for the city. Do we have any type of estimate what will be required to make this the transformation from a printing warehouse to a city government building?
Yes, Mayor. There will be a phase 1 completed as part of our due diligence within the 90 days inspection period that's been outlined in the contract of sale. Obviously, the planning of bringing some of the services back into City 1 will require time, as well as establishing a design and a basis of a cost estimate of which time we will bring back to council at that time. I think there's opportunity right now where things like the breezeway, there's some additional office spaces that tie back into some of the back areas of the city attorney's office, as an example, that could be easily be modified and incorporated into City 1 once we take over this building. The big warehouse where the printing operations was, as you stated, would require some modifications for us to outfit it for any office use or any other use that could be master planned into this building.
Will we be doing an environmental testing to make sure that the soil below is not contaminated? Will that be one of our requirements prior to, if it's not, I think it needs to be, whether we need to do phase 1 and then after the results look at doing maybe phase 2, because there's been a lot of chemicals that have been used back there.
Yes, Mayor. So it is included that we are going to be doing a phase 1 study. And as you stated, if the recommendation from the consultants come back to do soil exploration, then we will as part of a phase 2 study.
Great, that's great. Thank you for that. And with that, there's no further questions, and we have a motion and a second.
Yes, sir, there's a motion made by alternate Mayor Pro Tem Lizarraga, seconded by Representative Salcido to approve on that motion. Call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. End the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. The last item is number 45. This is discussion and action on a resolution requesting City Council approval, authorizing the mayor to sign an interlocal agreement between the City of El Paso and the University of Texas at El Paso, whereby UTEP will provide traffic collision data analysis and mitigation measurements for use in the intersection safety improvement program.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion made by Representative Molinar, seconded by Representative Salcido to approve. On that motion, call for the vote. Representative Hernandez?
Yes.
Thank you. End the voting session, and the motion passes unanimously. May we have a motion to adjourn? There's a motion and a second to adjourn the regular City Council meeting. All in favor? Anyone opposed? And the regular City Council meeting for Tuesday, October 12th, 2021 is adjourned at 12:37 p.m. Thank you.